When Blue Star handed out abilities at 16, I drew weak electricity, 1 grade off the bottom of the scale. My teacher advised me not to sit the entrance exam, because students like me died in it. Then the Deep Blue system woke up in my head and handed me the S-rank Purple Sky Divine Thunder. 12 hours later I had killed a rank 2 bloodthirsty violent bear alone, and cut 11,000 points out of a ruined town. The boy told to stay home came out first. Punch the like button and ring the subscribe bell so you stay in the loop. Every click moves the needle, but every fortune begins in a small room. Let me show you mine. The trending feed on my phone runs the same way every morning, and every line of it tells me I am not where I used to be. A roar came out of the deep Pacific yesterday, suspected to be a 9th order beast emperor breaking through, and every coastal city has been ordered to thicken its defenses. A month ago, the protective net over Yeoyang City in Gyeongsang Province opened a gap. A beast tide poured through it, and tens of thousands of citizens died. The rank 8 powerhouse they call the Gale Sword, Li Gang, has finished his investigation, and the press conference goes out at 9 tonight. A graduate of Magic City Ability University broke into the 5th tier and signed with the Ash Guild. 4 years after their last one, the USA has produced another S-rank Awakener Wind type, already recruited early by Houston Ability University. I set the phone face down and rub the space between my eyebrows until it aches, because the headache has been sitting there since I opened my eyes. Between the borrowed memories in my skull and the news on that screen, there is nothing left to argue with. I transmigrated. The world I landed in calls itself Blue Star, and its technology and civilization run close enough to my old life that I could almost mistake it for home, except for 2 additions. The first is ferocious beasts, bloodthirsty things that run wild across the whole planet. The second is abilities, the only reason humanity is still standing on it. I got drunk at a graduation party and woke up in another world. There is nobody I can take that complaint to. The predecessor whose body I am wearing was also named Seo Jongmyeong, a senior at Gang City No. 2 High School. Beyond a face that turned out better than average, he was ordinary to the last decimal. Even his awakened ability was a bottom-shelf E-rank called Weak Electricity. I raised my right hand and snapped my fingers, and thin blue-white arcs skip across my fingertips like static off a winter sweater. In my old life, that trick would have put me on every screen on the planet. Here it barely rates a glance, because on Blue Star everyone awakens an ability at 16, and that makes you an Awakener. The abilities themselves run in every direction: wind and fire, shape-shifting into beasts, closing wounds with a touch. Blue Star grades them across 9 ranks, SSS down through SS, A, B, C, D, E, and F, and the overwhelming majority of people never climb past D or E. Anyone who pulls an A is treated as a child of heaven. S and above show up once every few years, sometimes once a decade, and my predecessor pulled Weak Electricity without a flicker of surprise from anyone who knew him. Abilities also sort into 6 categories: Elemental, Enhancement, Spirit, Recovery, Natural, and Special. Weak Electricity is a lightning type under the natural category, and lightning types are respectable company. The E rank is what kills it. The arc dancing on my fingers right now hits about as hard as a stun baton, and I am being generous to myself with that comparison. So I transmigrated to become a walking stun baton. Wonderful. I snuff the arc and prop my chin on my hand. The classroom around me is bright and loud with break time chatter, and the blackboard at the front carries a countdown in its lower right corner reading 1 day. In the Great Han Nation, the college entrance examination lands every year on the 7th of June, and it decides who gets into an ability university to keep cultivating. Today is the 6th. Because of the ferocious beasts, ability users are a protected class here, revered in public and privileged everywhere else, which is a polite way of saying they are people who stand above other people. Awakening an ability only makes you an Awakener, and an Awakener cannot hold much real power. Only after a stretch of cultivation does an Awakener become an ability user, someone who can meet a serious beast head-on. Ability users are graded from the 1st tier to the 9th, and every tier splits again into low, middle, and high. Even the bottom rung, rank 1 low tier, takes an ordinary Awakener 4 or 5 years of grinding to reach alone. Get admitted to an ability university with mentors guiding you, and that timeline collapses, which is exactly why the whole country holds its breath over one exam. For someone carrying an E-rank ability, the odds of admission sit at a number indistinguishable from 0. Every transmigrator gets a cheat. So where is mine? I say it inside my own head, half joke and half prayer, and something answers me. The voice arrives flat and electronic behind my eyes, announcing that the Deep Blue system is activating, then that activation succeeded, then that a novice gift pack is being distributed. It finishes by asking whether I want to claim it now. My mouth is open, my eyes have gone wide enough that my deskmate would notice if he looked up. A system. It actually exists. The shock burns off in about 2 seconds, and what comes up underneath it is pure delight, because I know exactly what a system means for someone in my position. It means the ceiling I was born under is negotiable. I let out a long breath, get my face back under control, and instead of claiming anything, I ask what is inside the pack. The answer comes back as 200 ability points and an S-rank ability called Purple Sky Divine Thunder. An S-rank ability. My breathing goes shallow and quick. I have no idea yet what an ability point is worth, but I know precisely what an S-rank ability is worth, because the trending feed spelled it out for me 20 minutes ago. The USA is as heavy a power as the Great Han Nation, and it took them 4 years to produce one. My own country has not seen 1 and 2 or 3. Every S-rank awakener who avoids dying young ends up a monster with a region under his hand. I asked the system one more time, just to be certain whether claiming the pack really gives me an S-rank ability, and it tells me yes. There it is. The chance to argue with heaven about my own fate. My deskmate hisses at me to stop zoning out because old Jin has arrived, and I come back to the room to find that class started at some point without me. Standing at the podium is a middle-aged man with a crew cut, Jin Biom, head teacher of Class 5. Claiming an unknown package inside a classroom full of teenagers is a bad idea in any world. So I fold the excitement down small, promise myself I will open it the moment I get home, and sit through the lesson like a model student. Jin Biom spends the last period saying the things head teachers say the night before the biggest day of our lives. 12 years of study for one moment. Keep your head steady. Anyone sitting the liberal arts exam should check their stationery tonight and make sure every pen works. Anyone sitting the martial arts exam should check their combat suits and their weapons. The universities here split into 2 kinds. Liberal arts universities for ordinary knowledge, and ability universities for the cultivation of humanity's extraordinary force. So the college entrance examination splits the same way. The liberal arts exam is what it sounds like: a room, a desk, a paper. The martial arts exam puts candidates in combat suits, hands them weapons, drops them into a designated site, and grades them on how many ferocious beasts they kill, and what species those beasts were. It is a life and death struggle scored on a curve. Students choose their own track, and anyone short on confidence or stuck with a garbage ability can simply take the liberal arts exam and live an ordinary life. My predecessor had an E-rank ability and signed up for the martial arts exam anyway, and on that one point I agree with him completely. Taking the martial arts exam at least buys you a fighting chance. Refusing to take it means accepting the ordinary life before you have even tested the ceiling. Jin Biom repeats the warning one last time, that the martial arts exam carries a genuine risk of death, and he does not recommend it to anyone whose ability sits below D rank. He tells us there is still time to switch, before 9 tonight, and that anyone who wants to change their mind should come find him. Then he dismisses us, and on his way out his eyes travel across the room and stop on me long enough that I catch myself rubbing my nose. I know what the look means. In the entire third year Class 5, among everyone signed up for the martial arts exam, I am the only one carrying an E-rank ability. In past years, the students who died were overwhelmingly the ones below D. Old Jin is worried about me, and I appreciate it. It does not change the math. Every city in the Great Han Nation keeps ferocious beasts out with high-voltage grids, standing armies, and awakener squads, and none of it is airtight. Every so often, a city gets opened up by a beast tide, and the dead are counted in numbers too large to feel. I do not intend to be standing in one of those cities someday with nothing in my hands. I would have sat the martial arts exam with weak electricity. Now that an S-rank ability is waiting in my inbox, the question answers itself. A boy with a bowl cut turns around in the seat in front of me and asks whether I am really not going to change my choice. This is Jang Ho, my best friend who awakened an E-rank ability the same year I did. We were in the same boat then, except he took the sane exit and poured 2 years into ordinary coursework so he could sit the liberal arts exam. I tell him no. He gives me a thumbs up and says that out of the 6 or 7 E-rank awakeners in Class 5, I am the only one with the nerve to pick the martial arts track. I ask whether that means he wants to come along. He grins and says his plan is 4 leisurely years at a liberal arts university surrounded by girls. Heroic nonsense like defending the country, he says, should be left to a great awakener lord such as myself. I tell him to get lost, and I leave with my bag on my shoulder. Both of my parents in this world died in a beast tide when the predecessor was 10. They left behind a house and a little over $1 million in compensation money, and nothing else at all. So the apartment I walk into is empty, and since I was an orphan before I transmigrated too, the silence does not land on me the way it should. Anyway, I have something more important in front of me. The blue virtual box is sitting there in my mind, patient. I slam the claim button. The system tells me the novice gift pack has been issued, and 200 ability points credited. Then it starts the distribution of the S-rank ability, counting up in tens, and somewhere around the third number the power detonates inside me. Blue-purple arcs come up through my skin until I am less a person than a ball of lightning wearing one. Electricity screams as it spreads out from me and swallows the whole living room, and every single thing it touches explodes on contact. The sofa, the television, the coffee table. Lightning tangled with fire punches out through the window and into the open air. Outside, a child yells that the big brother's house across the way is on fire. Somebody calls for the fire department. Somebody else recognizes the address as the CO family's boy. I hear none of it. All I feel is a spreading warmth, my body filling to the brim with something enormous, while the count keeps climbing. The transformation reaches past halfway and starts pulling on the world. A clear afternoon sky goes black as if night had been dropped on the city, and no rain falls, but thunder rolls behind the clouds and purple lightning threads through them like flood dragons swimming. Down in the streets, people are asking why the sky went dark, and one of them says the pressure overhead feels like a weight on his chest. Somewhere a commander puts the Gang City 3rd Legion on alert, because the obvious explanation for weather like this is a lightning-controlling beast. Walking in, the count runs up through the high 90s, the sky flashes, and a bolt of purple lightning comes down through my window and pours into me. Then the clouds pull back and the sky is clear again, as though something had finished an errand. Inside the room, the count hits completion. The blue-purple lightning wrapped around me draws inward like a tide going out, and when I open my eyes, there is a flash of purple crossing them. I raise my right hand, think about it, and purple arcs spiral off my fingers. Nothing like the thin blue-white sparks from this morning. This lightning carries something old in it, and something that would like very much to be let off the leash. If that hits a person, they are not getting a shock. They are getting scattered. The living room looks like it took a missile. Shattered fragments cover the floor, a few of them still burning, and the walls and floorboards are pitted where the arcs chewed into them. I stand in the middle of it and scratch out a laugh that has no humor in it, because I know how close this came to being much worse. Purple sky divine thunder comes out of Eastern mythology, one of the 10 ancient primordial thunders, the kind of power described as destroying immortals and slaying gods. A bare awakener like me cannot express a fraction of that. Even so, if I had let go completely, I would have blown through the floor and brought the building down on every neighbor in it. I clamped down on the power halfway through the transformation, and that is the only reason this is a repair bill instead of a mass funeral. Lesson learned. Next time something this size arrives, I take it out to the edge of town first. Complaining aside, I am delighted. The heavier the ability, the further it carries me later. I ask the system what the 200 ability points are actually for. It answers that they are earned by killing ferocious beasts and spent on raising levels and skills, and that the balance and the upgrade options both live on the system panel. So they are experience points with a different coat of paint. Kill monsters, level up, simple and effective, and I have played enough games in my old life to know exactly how much mileage sits in a mechanic that boring. I open the panel and read it. The panel keeps things short. It gives my name, my level as Awakener, and my ability as Purple Sky Divine Thunder at S. My physique reads 121 blood chi with a plus sign beside it, and my spirit reads 140 hertz with the same. My skills come up as Spearmanship at Beginner and Lightning Gale Break at Beginner, with 200 ability points at the bottom. The plus signs mark what can be raised and what cannot yet. Physique and Spirit are the two basic attributes every Awakener is measured on, and most people sit near 100 in both, so the predecessor was doing better than he ever got credit for. 6 years on the spear and still rated Beginner though. That stings. Weapons matter here as much as abilities, since a bare ability rarely finishes the job. Most people pick sabers or swords. The predecessor picked a long spear at 12 and drilled with it for nearly 6 years, and the panel still calls him a beginner. Proficiency climbs through 6 steps. Beginner, Intermediate, Advanced, Master, Grandmaster, and Perfection, and Beginner means you have started. The other entry, Lightning Gale Break, is a spear-type combat technique he bought for 300,001 after awakening weak electricity at 16. Less than 2.5 years of practice on that one, so Beginner there is fair. 200 points and I can push them into attributes or into skills. Tomorrow is the exam, so whatever I choose has to convert into combat power tonight. Physique and Spirit are the foundation under everything else, and lifting them lifts combat techniques and ability control at the same time. I split the 200 down the middle and tell Deep Blue to add the points. My blood chi surges first, a river shoving its way through my body. Then my thinking sharpens, the way a smeared lens comes clean. And underneath both of those, my grip on the Purple Sky Divine Thunder tightens, because abilities grow out of physique and spirit in the first place, so raising the soil raises the crop. I clench my fist around the new weight in my arms and check the panel again. Physique reads 141, spirit reads 160, both up by 20. So one ability point buys 2/10 of blood chi or 2/10 of hertz. The conversion is stingy, but it is a straight game with no side effects and no drawbacks attached, which makes it worth every point. A pity the pack held only 200, then again for getting into an ability university, what I am holding is already overkill. From the moment the Purple Sky Divine Thunder settled into me, I was among the strongest examinees in Gangnam Province. With both basic attributes raised, I am solidly in the top bracket. I say top bracket instead of strongest for a reason. Gangnam Province holds over 80 million people and sends more than 700,000 candidates into the martial arts exam. Out of a pool that size, the one thing never in short supply is freaks. They may not have S-rank abilities, but an A-rank ability stacked on real combat experience and expensive combat techniques is not something to wave off. Families with money hire famous instructors, buy rare techniques, and pay ability user bodyguards to walk their children into the wilderness area so they can learn what a beast feels like before it counts. An orphan cannot compete on that ground. Then again, none of them are carrying what I am carrying. Somebody starts hammering on my front door, and before I can answer, the whole door comes off its hinges and sails toward me. Firefighters in orange-red gear pour in behind it with hoses up. Find no inferno, find instead one intact teenager standing in the wreckage, and stop dead. I blink at them and say hello. I explain that I have a lightning ability and that the fire is already handled, and they sweep the apartment for hazards, find none, and do not linger. On the way out, they put my door back on, which I did not expect, and the captain presses a business card into my hand. He tells me a lightning ability is ideal for controlling fires and explosions in electrical facilities. After I graduate, he says, I should come find him at the Gang City Fire Department, and he will place me. It is a government post, and with water and fire awakeners on the crew, nobody dies doing it. So ordinary people consider it an excellent life. I thank him, and the second the door closes, I drop the card in the drawer of my bedside table. No offense to the captain. I did not get handed a primordial thunder to keep electrical panels from catching fire. I pick the long spear up off the wall and head out. Myeongwol neighborhood is where this body has lived for 18 years, so the faces downstairs are all familiar, and the predecessor's gentle manner make him popular with the older residents. Uncle Yang asks whether the fire is all right, and I tell him it is under control. He asks whether I am off to the dojo, and I tell him I am going to squeeze in some practice. He marvels that I would train the night before the exam, and says his own brat could learn something from me. I answer every greeting on the way out, then carry the spear onto a bus, and transfer to the subway. I come up in front of a tower of silver-white walls about 40 meters tall, sprawling across its plot like a crouching animal. 4 characters run down its side in flamboyant strokes, blazing in the sunlight. Thunder Martial Arts School. An awakener who wants to become an ability user has to train physique and spirit until the ability itself grows heavier, and almost nobody can afford a private training room at home. That gap is what martial arts schools exist to fill. 2 names dominate the whole Great Han Nation, the Thunder Martial Arts School and the Violent Bear Dojo. Both have branches in every city, even out here in Gang City where Gangnam Province stops paying attention. Gang City also has a few dozen private schools of assorted quality. Only the Thunder Martial Arts School opens its doors to high school students for free. That is the entire reason the predecessor trained here, and the entire reason I am here now, wanting to find out exactly what the last few hours did to me. Other awakeners are arriving with weapons in hand, and a few of them carry themselves like genuine ability users. The founder of this place is a rank 9 ability user named Na Heng, who also happens to hold an S-rank lightning type ability. Standing under his sign, it occurs to me that one day I might put up a school with my own name on it. 6 floors, each one tens of thousands of square meters, and the second and third are reserved for high school students at no charge. I go straight up to the third, where the predecessor always went. It is Wednesday, so the first and second years are still in class, and most third years are at home doing whatever people do the night before the rest of their lives. The hall that is usually packed holds about a dozen people. Among them is a face I know. She is about 1.7 meters, features fine and cold, no weapon on her, dressed casually with blue denim shorts and a pair of legs that the shorts are clearly there to advertise. Around her stand several other young men and women in the kind of clothes that cost more than my spear. I smile and greet her as Ki Nuna. Deng Ki is my aunt's daughter, a third year like me and a few months older, and since both my parents died young, my aunt has always made a point of checking on me. Her daughter came along sometimes. Our relationship is neither warm nor cold, for a simple reason. The predecessor was introverted and did not talk, and the gap between our households left the two of them with nothing to stand on together. 2 years ago, she awakened a B-rank ability while he awakened an E, and after that, there was even less. She was not expecting me here, and it takes her a beat to surface before she nods and says she is just visiting with friends. That explains it. My aunt's family is comfortable, so Dang Ki trains at the Violent Bear Dojo where membership runs $100,000 a year, and she almost never sets foot in this building. I tell her not to let me hold them up, say I am heading for a training room, and go. Behind me, a tall girl in a dress asks who that was, because he looked good, and there is real curiosity in her wide, clear eyes. Dang Ki tells her that was Seo Jongmyoung, her cousin, a third year like them, sitting the martial arts exam tomorrow. She watches his back get smaller down the corridor, and her brows draw together, because something about him is off tonight and she cannot name it. In the past, even running into her by accident, he never spoke first. Tonight he greeted her before she saw him. The young man in white beside her laughs and asks whether Aya is in heat and shopping for a boyfriend. Aya does not take offense in the slightest. With a face like that, she says openly, as long as his strength is not embarrassing, walking him around as a boyfriend would be quite the accessory. Danki shakes her head and says her cousin is going to disappoint her, because he only awakened an E-rank ability. The curiosity in Aya's eyes dies down by half on the spot, and she says only an E-rank. What a shame. People run in circles, and a circle tends to share a tax bracket. This group has money at home and abilities in the B and C range, and one look at Seo Jungmyeon's clothes tells them where he sits. Stack an E-rank on top, and even a girl who collects pretty faces cannot keep her interest alive. A young man with a stud in his ear says that taking the martial arts exam with an E-rank ability at least shows courage. Danki says courage is not the issue. The risk is, and that she would rather he did not take it at all. In the martial arts exam, the dead are almost entirely below D rank. If he were even a D, she would keep her mouth shut. And E is thin enough that walking in looks like an appointment rather than an exam. He could sit the liberal arts exam, go be a white-collar worker somewhere, never fight anything, and her mother could stop worrying every single day. Seeing her mood turn, the group drops the subject and goes back to wandering. I have no idea any of that happened. I am already inside a private training room about 20 square meters across, the kind that normally needs a booking, and tonight is simply empty. First, I want my ceiling with no ability involved at all. I take the long spear off my back. Ferocious beast hide and muscle are thick enough that ordinary weapons will not open them, so every ability user's weapon comes out of a specialized manufacturer. Mine is an Obsidian series piece from the Hyungwon group. The shaft runs about 1.9 meters, the head adds more than 20 centimeters, and the whole thing comes to 2 meters. One of low, flat black. I give it a shake and hear the metal ring, and the shake tells me something is wrong before I understand what. The spear has gotten lighter. No, that is not what happened at all. I got heavier. Alloys are graded on the same 9-step ladder as abilities, and the rarer the alloy, the harder and sharper it cuts, and the more it costs. The Obsidian line lets you pick your alloy and your weight, and since only F-grade weapons and combat suits may be carried into the martial arts exam, F-grade is what I have, at 50 kilogram. It costs close to 200,000. There is a saying here that literature is for the poor and martial arts is for the rich, and I have proven it. Between training, combat suits, weapons and combat techniques, most of my parents' pension and a great deal of my aunt's stubborn generosity have already gone into this body. Under 50,000 is what remains. So a heavier spear is not happening tonight, and the loss is small enough to live with. I warm up. 6 years of picking, thrusting, smashing, cleaving, tapping, and poking are burned so deep into these arms that the spear goes where it is going before I decide. Inside a minute, the muscle across my back is loose, and my blood is up. Then I set my grip and drive the point into the circular bullseye on the front wall. The impact rings. The bullseye is memory metal, and it caves inward at an angle that looks exaggerated even as it happens, holding the dent until the spear withdraws. On the smart screen beside it, a number appears. 321 Ka. 321. Nearly double what this body could do yesterday. Ka is the standard unit for attack intensity, and 1 Ka equals the energy off a black spider firecracker. Most Awakeners top out near 100 Ka on physical strength alone, and the predecessor managed about 140, with almost nothing added when he used his ability. That last part is where things have changed. I call the purple sky divine thunder and it comes instantly. Arcs wrap me until the room is full of the shriek of jumping electricity, and I feel less like a student and more like something out of a temple mural. I raise a hand, point, and a bolt goes out and slams the bullseye. This time the memory metal stays dented for a full 7 or 8 seconds before it remembers its own shape, and the number on the screen reads 3012 Ka. 3000. 10 times what my body does on its own. A rank 1 ability user throws about 1000 Ka. 3000 is middle stage rank 1 territory. I am an awakener who has not cultivated a single day toward a tier, and the ability alone has dragged me into a bracket I have no business standing in. No wonder every country on this planet chases high rank awakeners the way they do, when the gap between grades is a cliff rather than a slope, and 3000 is not the ceiling either. I breathe out slow and let the lightning crawl down the obsidian spear until the whole shaft is lit. Then I call the technique. Lightning Gale Break. The room fills with white glare as the spear turns into a purple-black flood dragon and drives at the wall, and the collision is loud enough to shake the floor under my boots. When the light clears, the bullseye has a crater melted through its center that memory metal is never going to reshape. Cracks web out from it across the entire wall, splitting far enough to expose cabling that is still spitting sparks in the gaps. Those cables ran the scoring. The screen on my right shows nothing at all. This is a primary training room, and its memory metal is rated to absorb an upper stage rank 1 ability user at most. Destroying it means I went past the rating. which means that one strike put me level with an upper stage rank 1. That is what a combat technique does. Lightning Gale Break is the only one I own, and the predecessor chose it well, because it folds lightning-type output and spearmanship into a single motion instead of asking them to take turns. Most combat techniques are built around the user's own ability that way. I sling the spear across my back and walk out. The Thunder Martial Arts School keeps maintenance staff for exactly this and charges nothing for broken equipment. Anyone capable of breaking it by their reasoning is precisely the sort of person they want walking through the door. Peak output level with an upper stage rank 1. Tomorrow is going to be interesting. Out in the corridor, Danki's group is complaining their way toward boredom. One of them says the Violent Bear Dojo is better, that the training rooms here are cramped, and the testing equipment is a generation behind. Another says of course it is, or what exactly is the 100,000 a year buying? A third admits that wandering around has stopped being fun, and someone suggests the combat rooms, which puts a light in several pairs of eyes at once. Then the wall shakes. The impact rolls up through the floor under their feet, sharp enough to hurt the ears. The boy with the earring says out loud that the energy fluctuation just reached ability user level. He would know, because his awakened ability is a C-grade spirit type that reads energy the way other people read weather. Aya frowns and points out that this floor is reserved for high school students. The 2 or 3 freaks in all of Gang City who have crossed into ability user territory train at the Violent Bear Dojo, so what would one of them be doing here? Gang City sits in a poor corner of Gangnam Province, with a shallow educational bench, and still it produces 1 or 2 monsters a year, who break past the Awakener stage. Somebody wonders aloud whether one of them came to train, or whether a new one just got made. They go to look. They round the corner and walk straight into me coming the other way with a long black spear on my back. Dang Ki recovers from the surprise faster this time and asks whether I am heading home. I tell her training is done and I want an early night to finish preparing. She tells me good luck tomorrow, and then adds that I should keep myself safe. She still thinks an E-rank Awakener sitting the martial arts exam is a boy overestimating himself. But I am her cousin, so she says it anyway. I grin and tell Kinuna to do her best too, and we pass each other in the corridor. There are only 8 training rooms in that stretch, so it takes them no effort at all to find mine. When they see the wall inside, webbed and split from the crater outward, 4 sets of eyes go wide, and even Danki's cold composure cracks far enough to leave her mouth open. The young man in white says that the memory metal itself is in pieces, and asks what kind of attack is that. The boy with the earring reads the residual energy still hanging in the room, and says seriously now, that whoever threw it is at the peak of rank 1, possibly rank 2. Aya says that cannot be right, that Gang City does not produce a high school student like that. Dang Ki shakes her head and offers the reasonable explanation that some ability user who did not know the floor rules wandered up here and used the room for a strength test. The others agree quickly, because the alternative is unbearable. Even the handful of ability user candidates already in the city has them feeling squeezed. If some candidate had actually reached rank 2, then this entire group might as well go find a block of tofu and run at it head first. They have burned through more resources than they can count, and still are not ability users. Then Aya says that the only person who walked past just now was Seo Jongmeong. She blinks, and floats the idea that maybe he is a hidden monster who has been sandbagging for years, saving it all for tomorrow. The earring boy tells her she has been reading too many novels about playing the pig to eat the tiger. To hide strength, he says, you first need strength worth hiding, and for an E-rank Awakener it is a good day if attack intensity touches 300 Ka. He adds that the corridors on both sides open to the outside, so the real culprit almost certainly left the other way, which is why they missed him. Ability grades are not assigned out of thin air after all. They are assigned on potential, and an E-rank sets a hard ceiling on a person's entire life. Aya thinks about it and nods. Dang Ki says nothing. She is thinking about the straight-backed figure that walked past her in the corridor, and for the first time a small crack is opened under a certainty she has carried for 2 years. The liberal arts exam runs out of ordinary school buildings. The martial arts exam runs out of a military district on the edge of the city, and candidates gather at the city gymnasium first to be transported in together. Assembly at 8 in the morning. I am up early and dressed in everything I own. The obsidian spear rides across my back, and under it I wear an F-rank black combat suit and black combat boots, both cut from ferocious beast hide. They are tough enough not to tear the first time something with claws disagrees with me, and thick enough to eat a share of the damage. I check the last strap, look at the door, and tell the exam I am coming. Across the city in Gyeomsu neighborhood, in one of the villas that make the district famous, Dang Ki finishes breakfast and gears up. She is nearly out the door when a woman with 70 or 80% of her own face calls after her. Her mother asks whether she and Myung are at the same exam site. Dang Ki says she explained this already, that Gang City has exactly one martial arts exam site, so obviously they are. She runs a last check over her equipment while she answers. What she awakened is a special tight B rank ability called Shadow Cat, and activating it lifts her physique, her flexibility, and her reaction speed together. That is why she fights with a dagger and wears a suit cut close and light. Her mother asks her to help her cousin if she runs into him, because an E rank ability in that exam is simply too dangerous. Then she asks her to watch her own safety and not to force a fight with a high-tier beast, just to pull her score up. Dang Ki wants to explain that the exam map is enormous, and the odds of running into any one specific round down to nothing. She looks at her mother's face instead and says she understands. Then she gets into the car the driver has waiting and leaves for the gymnasium. Gang City has 3 high schools and roughly 3,000 seniors, and once the liberal arts candidates are subtracted, 1,400 people are still going into the ruins today. The city has put about 40 buses outside the city gymnasium parked in neat rows by school and by class, so arriving candidates only have to find the right one. Some candidates arrive alone. Most arrive with parents, and the last thing said before boarding is almost always the same. Whatever your score is, come back. A father tells his son he does not care about results. A mother tells her daughter to protect herself. I stand at the edge of the lot and watch it, and I would be lying if I said it did not land somewhere under my ribs. I was an orphan in my last life too. Apparently the universe saw no reason to revise the arrangement. 2 lives, and still nobody at the gate. Fine. I take a breath, put it away, and go find my bus. I locate the one for class 5 of the 3rd year, Gang City No. 2 High School, and walk up the steps into a wave of whispering. Somebody asks whether that is Seo Jong-myung, and says he looks good in a combat suit. Somebody else says they never noticed his presence being that sharp. The predecessor was among the least visible people in class 5, introverted enough that if he skipped a day, nobody but Jang Ho and the head teacher would have registered it. The raw material was never the problem. He is 1 meter 8'6", and the face is genuinely good. He simply slouched and let his eyes slide off everyone he passed, and that erased him. The eyes are steady now and the spine is straight. I had a black combat suit and a long ugly spear over one shoulder, and the effect is apparently drastic, judging by the number of girls watching me sit down. Jin Byom, riding shotgun with the roll sheet, does a double take before he catches himself and ticks my name off. The list fills in slowly, and when the last class 5 candidate boards, he calls it and tells the driver to move out. The college entrance examination is a national event here in a way it never was at home. Provinces and cities start noise management a full month out so candidates can sleep. The wealthier residential districts go further and hire sonic-type ability users, who seal the whole compound off from outside sound at 9 every night. On the day itself, the protection turns rigorous. Roads go under traffic control, armed soldiers walk the main routes, and ability user squads patrol alongside them so nothing unexpected gets a chance to be unexpected. Our 40-odd buses cross the city without touching a single obstacle and roll into the suburban military district. We come out onto a wide-open space with a soldier standing every 3 meters, rifle held, expression flat enough that nobody has to be told what happens if a person rushes the line. At the front is a temporary podium, and behind the podium is barbed wire, and behind the wire is the exam. It is a ruined town, and it runs to the horizon. Between the broken buildings, dark shapes slide in and out of view, and the hissing and roaring carries all the way to us across the open ground. Somebody breathes out and says that is the sight. Somebody swears and says he just saw a one-horned rhinoceros. Somebody else says that cannot be, that this year's paper could not possibly be set that cruelly. The ruins used to be Waiwan Town, a village township under Gang City, until a beast tide broke it decades ago. The military took the ground back later and found nothing worth rebuilding, so it became a training range, and every year on the 7th of June it becomes an exam site. The beasts inside are not the arbitrary mix used for ordinary drills. They are chosen by the Gangnam Province Examination Board, and every prefecture-level city in the province gets the identical combination, which is how the whole thing stays fair. That combination is also the difficulty setting. Ordinarily, the outskirts hold nothing worse than common stock, shadow cats and iron-haired boars. In some years, a one-horned rhinoceros or a blade-armed tiger turns up out there instead, and everyone understands what it means. Harder paper, more funerals. So when a rhinoceros walks through a gap in the barbed wire view, faces around me go gray, and a few candidates simply come apart on the spot. A voice cuts across the whole open space, high and carrying. If you cannot handle a beast at that level, it says, then even if you luck into an ability university, you will never amount to anything. He is wearing a light cyan battlesuit, cut like something off an old scroll, carrying a long sword, and his whole bearing is chivalric hero with the volume up. His eyes have the weight of a raptor's. Several students turn around angry, see who it is, and swallow it. I ask the tall boy beside me, the one carrying a blade and shield, who that is and why he is like that. This is Yu-Ji-All, an enhancement type C rank called gigantification, which lets him swell past twice his size with the strength to match. After Jang Ho, he is the person in class 5 I am closest to. He purses his lips and says who else. That is the light wind sword Ju Myung-king from First High School. That explains the silence. First High School has the deepest bench in the city, with genuine ability users teaching classes in live combat against ferocious beasts scheduled at intervals. Almost every name in the city's top 10 comes out of it. Jo Myung-yang is their sharpest. His ability is an elemental type B rank wind type called Light Spirit Gale. Using it lets him condense wind blades while cutting his own air resistance, which raises both his running speed and his attack speed. In all of Gang City, Light Spirit Gale sits in the first tier of awakened abilities. On top of that, he is one of the very few candidates here who has already crossed from Awakener to ability user. He had the title of Light Wind Sword before the exam even started. Nobody sane picks a fight with that. Over in the staff ranks, the principal of First High School watches his student cow 1,400 people and nods, satisfied. The buses finish emptying and everyone falls into ranks by school and by class, head teacher standing at the front of each block. Then a middle-aged man in a military uniform steps onto the podium. He is tall, with a long scar down his right cheek, and he sweeps his eyes over the field once. The whispering dies instantly. Jo Myung-yang's stare makes you feel pressed on. This man's stare makes your heart stumble. Rank 2 at minimum, I think, standing in the line. Probably higher. He introduces himself as Wang Haiyang, General Commander of the Gang City Martial Arts Examination, and says he will go over the rules once more. The exam starts at 9 in the morning and ends at 9 at night, 12 hours in total. The site is the ruined town behind him, divided as always into outer, middle, and core areas. The outer holds unranked ferocious beasts. The middle holds peak unranked and first rank. The core is entirely first rank and above, and the innermost part of the core belongs to high-level first rank and second rank beasts. He does not use a microphone, and every word arrives at the back of the field as clearly as at the front. Outer, middle, core, innermost. It is a mathematics paper with teeth. The innermost is the final question, printed for the top students to break themselves against. Wang Haiyang continues. Killing different types and grades of ferocious beasts earns different scores, and the higher the rank and the stronger the beast, the more the kill is worth. Then he tells us to act within our means and choose the area that fits us, and moves on to distribution. He waves his right hand, squads of soldiers come out from the side, and a truck rolls up and opens its cargo door on rows of black tactical backpacks. Each of us gets one, and each holds 3 things. First, a smartwatch that tallies the number and species of beasts killed, accumulates the score, and carries a map of the ruins with your own position on it. Second, 3 compressed energy bars that restore stamina fast. Third, a safety ball, a silver white metal sphere that throws a high voltage net around the body which ordinary beasts cannot break, and which ends your exam the moment you use it. I strap the watch to my wrist, drop the bars into the pack, shoulder it, and hang the ball at my waist where my hand falls naturally. Everyone else does roughly the same. Nobody says the obvious card out loud. In a fight with these things, the distance between alive and dead is measured in a single second, and a great many people will die with a safety ball still hanging unused on the belt. Wang Haiyang tells us to check our packs and report anything missing to the rostrum, then steps down. It is 20 to 9, a little over 20 minutes left, and the field loosens. The loosening sounds like a recruitment drive. Someone asks whether any team needs a tank and advertises a D-grade enhancement ability that can hold a line and deal damage. Someone else sighs that the difficulty this year forces teaming whether you like it or not, and offers a C-grade spirit type that can stall a beast's thinking. A third calls out for brutal output, any type D-grade or better. Teams are permitted. The catch is that team kills split evenly across every member, so efficiency drops hard, which is why most people would rather go in alone. The rhinoceros behind the wire has changed a lot of minds in the last 10 minutes. A girl in a silver-white suit cut close enough to argue with the dress code comes over to my part of the Class 5 block. She is fair and pretty and smiling. She says I probably have not joined a team yet, so why not theirs, since they are short in auxiliary output and my lightning type would slot in neatly. Most students would take that invitation and thank the heavens for it. My eyebrow twitches. This is Im Chung-won, class monitor, gentle by nature and genuinely good, which combined with the way she looks makes her reputation in Class 5 untouchable. At some point she learned that Seo Jung-myung had lost both parents, and ever since she has quietly steered Small Help his way during class activities and study sessions. She thought she was being subtle. The predecessor was introverted and raw-nerved enough to catch every instance of it, and he privately concluded she had a crush on him. I have the outside view. She is kind, that is all. And this team invitation is the same reflex wearing a different coat. I admire the instinct. I wish it came with the ability to read a room. The martial arts exam settles life and death in a single sitting, and nobody wants a passenger. I glance past her shoulder, and sure enough, the faces of her other teammates have gone the color of raw liver. I shake my head and tell her I plan to go in alone, and that they should team up without me. She starts to press, sees that I mean it, sighs, and turns away disappointed, telling me to be careful in there. Behind her, her teammates let out a breath they have been holding for a full minute. She is the captain, so they could not have refused her, and letting an E-grade ability into the group would have dragged the shared score down for everyone. Purely on the evidence, her family must have kept her wrapped in cotton her entire life. Nobody comes out this decent by accident. Yujial slides over the instant she is gone, wearing a leer. Turning down an invitation from the great beauty Im is something else. He says when half the year would trade a limb for it. I tell him to shut up, that everyone knows the monitor collects strays. He says he knows, he just assumed I had convinced myself it was a secret crush. Then he drops the joke and asks whether I really mean to go in alone, because this exam is brutal and an E-grade ability alone is a hard sell. He offers, magnanimously, to take me under his wing if I call him Big Brother, and flicks his hair in a manner that deserves a slap. Yujol used to be as quiet as the predecessor. Then he awakened a C-grade ability, and the personality that came out from under it has been unbearable ever since. The phrasing is punchable. The worry underneath it is real, which is why he is my friend. Naturally, I cannot admit that out loud. I laugh in his face and tell him that I am not the man I was, that this version does not need carrying. I tell him I am going for provincial champion of Gangnam Province, and that if he calls me father, I will graciously drag him into the provincial top 100. Then I flick my own hair back at him exactly the way he did. Boys' friendships are just two people racing to be each other's dad. He stares at me, clicks his tongue, and says provincial champion. That is a hell of a brag, and that he never noticed I had the talent for it. He adds that Jang Ho would laugh his teeth out if he were standing here. I shake my head sadly and tell him nobody believes the truth anymore, that morals decline a little further every day. 9 o'clock arrives. The gates into the ruined town are hauled open. Wang Haeyong's voice comes off the rostrum, announcing that the year 2037 Gang City Martial Arts Examination has officially begun, and that candidates should enter. 1,400 people move at once. Somebody shouts that he intends to astonish the world with one performance. Somebody shouts that his target is a provincial ability university. The whole mass of battle suits and weapons pours through the gate like locusts, and I take my spear off my back, laugh along with them, and go in with the flood. The ruins swallow every one of us, and the open ground behind us empties out inside a minute. Behind us, an officer orders the ruined cameras and tracking drones brought up for the broadcast. The Great Han Nation runs on martial virtue, so the martial arts examination is aired live every year. It is watched by the Education Bureau, by principals and head teachers, and by first and second year students whose schools schedule the viewing into the timetable. Tens of thousands of cameras hidden in the rubble wake at once, and more than 50 military drones lift off to shadow the candidates who already had reputations before today. The feed goes up onto a projection above the open space, while the staff take their seats and talk among themselves. Waiwan Town was a village by administrative label only. The place is enormous. 1,400 people crowd the entrance for about 90 seconds and then vanish into it like a cup of water poured into the sea. Ferocious beasts have intelligence too, so the arrival of that many armed humans does not trigger a charge. It triggers hiding, so the teams and the loners spread out and go deep on their own terms. Ju Myung-yang activates his ability the moment he is through the gate, fins the air in front of himself, and goes off down a street like a cheetah with a schedule. I pick a direction, walk, and wake the smart watch on my wrist. A blue virtual screen unfolds in front of my eyes and asks me to authenticate. Blue Star runs well ahead of my old world on technology, and projections like this are mature enough that nobody looks twice. I press my left thumb to the face and wait through the fingerprint check. It confirms me as a third-year Class 5 candidate out of Gang City No. 2 High School and posts my admission number. 2 boxes open in the upper right. The first is mine, name, class, score of 0. The second is the live ranking for the entire city. Jo Myung-young holds first with 7 points. Lee Wan of First High School holds third with 4. I am sitting at 874th with nothing at all. Of course, First High is already on the board. The exam has been running for 4 minutes. I switch to the map. The ruins render as a lopsided circle in bands of color. The outer area green, the middle yellow, the core red. The innermost core is a darker red that the map makers clearly chose for its resemblance to dried blood. My own white dot sits out at the rim. There is a long walk between the edge and anything worth killing, so I set my heading for the red and start moving. I do not get far before something steps into the road. It is the size of a leopard, its fur so black it reads as a hole in the street, and its vertical pupils are a pale orange. Take away the teeth and the claws with dried blood still on them, and it would be a beautiful animal. Shadow Cat. The Ferocious Beast Compendium was one of the few books the predecessor actually finished, so I have the entry in front of my eyes before the thing finishes turning its head. Shadow cats are extremely common in the wilderness area, and common here does not mean harmless. It means adaptable. Speed, claws, teeth, and a bite measured in thousands of kilograms. A large share of the candidates who die every year die to this exact animal. It sees a human, drops its chest, lets out a low bloodthirsty rumble, and comes at me. And the smell of live meat pushes its sprint another notch faster. Awakeners fighting a ferocious beast for the first time usually fumble it without understanding why. I watch it close the distance and feel nothing move in my chest at all. At 3 meters it leaves the ground, claws up, aiming for my head, and those claws cut like alloy, so if it lands the strike my skull comes apart like dropped fruit. There is something almost human in the excitement on its face as it commits. Then a black blur crosses the space between us, and the spearhead goes through its throat and pins it in the air. Blood comes out of the severed artery in a column. The system tells me I killed one unranked ferocious beast, a shadow cat, and credits 3 ability points. There is a reason these things are called ferocious, and it is not only temperament. Every ferocious beast carries an aura, and the human equivalent would be a professional killer who has never once hesitated. An ordinary person catching a single glance from a man like that can lose his nerve on the spot, and a few lose more than that. Beasts carry the same weight, which is why most awakeners in a first fight cannot express even 30% of what they can do. Some of them lock up completely and forget they own a weapon, forget they have an ability, forget everything. This is exactly why families with money hire ability user bodyguards and walk their children into the wilderness area early, so that the first time is spent somewhere it does not count. I had no way to buy that, so I have spent weeks wondering how this body would react. The answer is that it did not react. I tracked the shadow cat's leap, calculated where the arc would put its throat, and put the spear there, as calmly as I have done it 1,000 times against a wall. Some people are simply deaf to that aura. Apparently I am one of them. I will take it. I wrench the spear free, and the corpse hits the road and throws up a cloud of dust. That cat had probably never seen a spear before. Against a longsword or a broadsword, the jumping claw strike is a fine opening, because by the time the blade can reach the animal has already reached the swordsman. My obsidian spear is 2 meters in 1 inch longer, 1 inch stronger, and it died before it ever entered its own range. The other 2 common species, iron-haired boars and blade-armed tigers, are heavy and clumsy by comparison, and an awakener who cannot win can at least run. A shadow cat raids at 17 meters per second. Against one of these, running is just dying tired, which is why the compendium gives them the nickname of newbie killer. And I nearly forgot the reward entirely. 3 ability points on the panel, and my chest goes hot looking at them, because it means every fight in here converts directly into permanent strength. Unranked beasts pay poorly though. I need the middle area. Ferocious beasts grade the same way ability users do, rank 1 through rank 9, and anything below rank 1 is called unranked, the beast equivalent of an awakener. I had planned to spend real time acclimating out here on the rim. Since the aura does nothing to me, staying is only wasting daylight, so I pick up the obsidian spear and run. Compared to Zhu Myongyang with the wind cleared out in front of him, my sprint is unimpressive. I make up for it by not stopping. Killed 1 unranked iron-haired boar, 5 points. Killed 1 unranked one-horned rhinoceros, 6 points. The notifications stack up behind my eyes while my boots keep moving. I do not use the ability once. 2 reasons. The first is that I want the spear tempered, and dropping a primordial thunder on an unranked animal is an instant kill that teaches me nothing. The second is fuel. Weak electricity at full output could run over 3 hours. Purple Sky Divine Thunder at full output might not hold an hour, because the rarer the ability, the heavier it drinks, and this exam runs 12 hours. If I burn the tank out here, and then walk into the core to meet middle and high tier rank 1 beasts, I will have a stick and a prayer, so the lightning stays holstered until the red zone. What I notice instead is that every fight leaves me sharper than it found me. My combat awareness is climbing at a rate that does not match the hours involved. My spearmanship is smoothing out until the weapon goes exactly where the thought went, and this body has never once had that sensation. Somewhere in there I start to wonder whether the skill broke through without telling me. On a cracked side street, a corpse the size of a compact car lies at my feet, knife-edged horns on its head and limbs like pillars. The hide is dark brown, still radiating enough aura to make a normal person's knees fold. This is the beast every candidate prays not to meet, a one-horned rhinoceros, and its body is covered in bull-sized punctures. The fatal one went through the eye socket, where the obsidian spear had destroyed everything behind it. I pull the spear out, and a certain amount of the rhinoceros comes with it. If a civilian were standing here, the weaker-stomached ones would be losing their breakfast. My hands are steady, so I open the panel over the corpse and read it. Level still Awakener. Ability still Purple Sky Divine Thunder at S. Physique 141 Blood Chi. Spirit 160 Hz, both holding. Skills now read spearmanship at intermediate, with lightning gale break still beginner. Ability points, 213. Intermediate. 6 years of drilling in a school hall left it at beginner, and a few dozen fights in a single morning moved it a whole step. Some of that is accumulated effort finally cashing out. Most of it is that practice and combat are not the same activity, and everybody who tells you otherwise has never been on this street. If intermediate already feels like the spear is reading my mind, I want to know what advanced feels like. 3 hours in, I have killed somewhere over 40 ferocious beasts without hunting for a single one. Everything from shadow cats up through blade-armed tigers and rhinoceroses. I never once stopped to count the payout. 213 points is enough to buy a skill outright, and the temptation wins in about 4 seconds. I press the plus beside spearmanship. Technique floods into my head like a tide coming through a broken door, and it does not arrive the way a film arrives, watched once and gone by dinner. It arrives as though I personally spent decades with a spear in my hands. When it finishes settling, I drive the point forward, and inside a single second the obsidian spear thrusts 4 separate times, black and fast and mean. On the old street, the spear moves like a swimming dragon. When I finally stop, the tip goes from full speed to absolute stillness so abruptly that the air friction leaves heat shimmering off the metal. With this alone, I could kill a first-order beast. No ability required. I had assumed skills were the poor cousin of the 2 basic attributes, and that was an expensive assumption to be wrong about. Advanced spearmanship more than doubled my thrust speed. Beyond the raw numbers, every application of the weapon is simply there now, so whatever stands in front of me, some part of me already knows the counter. A first-order beast with several times my physique would get toyed with rather than fought. The panel says the upgrade cost 200 points and left me 13. Master level would tell me something genuinely interesting about this system, and I cannot afford a syllable of it. I open the map. My white dot has crawled to the outer edge of the green, with the yellow band close now, maybe half an hour out. The middle area is peak unranked and first order stock, which means the points comes faster, which means everything else comes faster. Waiwan Town was built decades ago and was never primitive, so the streets around me are concrete, and the layout splits into urban and suburban exactly like a modern city. Where I am standing was a suburban residential block. Between the beast tide and the years since, more than half of the 6-story buildings have collapsed into their own footprints, and the ones still upright are weathered down to the bones. Weeds have taken the paving stones. There is nothing alive on this street but me. I am stowing the obsidian spear and turning to leave when figures appear at the far end of the road. There are 5 of them, 3 women and 2 men, led by a tall girl in a silver-white battlesuit. It is Chongwon who invited me into her team 4 hours ago and got turned down. She spots me at the same moment, and her face lights up before she covers the ground between us in a few long strides. I greet her as Monitor. I have passed other candidates all morning, but they were all from other schools or other classes. This is the first classmate I have run into, so the smile that comes up is not one I have to manufacture. She looks around the empty street, does not find anyone else, and asks whether I really came all this way alone. Behind her, the 4 teammates are staring, and I can read the arithmetic on their faces. E-grade awakeners are usually out of this exam inside the first hour or 2. It is past noon. It has been more than 3 hours. And here I am, undamaged. This far in, I tell her it is more convenient alone. She says that is amazing and gives me a thumbs up, then credits their own progress to a girl named Sogyo, who nods shyly from the back of the group. Sogyo awakened a support-type D-grade ability called Dash that raises her own movement speed and her teammates along with it. And without her, the team would still be back in the green. I tell Im Chungwon my luck has been good, and the beasts I met were not up to much, and I stretch the conversation a little longer than I normally would. In a place crawling with things that want to eat me, 5 minutes of a pretty classmate's company is not a resource I am going to refuse. Then I tell her time is short, and we should catch up after the exam, and she agrees, wishes me a good score, and lets me go without pushing. She watches me leave and thinks that she really had not expected Seo Jungmeong to make it this deep, and that clearly he had his own reasons for signing up. He lost his parents young, which makes him a person she has always found a little pitiable, and dying in this exam would have been the cruelest possible ending to it. Seeing him whole, she lets out a breath she did not know she was holding. Somebody calls the captain over. The team is gathered around the one-horned rhinoceros corpse, and the excitement in their voices is climbing. The blood at the wounds has not dried, one of them says. So this thing died within the last few minutes. Another counts the punctures and says there are many wounds, but the killing blow was through the head. A third says the wound shape reads as a long-handled piercing weapon, and then says, slower, that it looks like a spear. They had walked past the body earlier and dismissed it as an old kill from some team ahead of them. And now that they are close enough to look properly, neither assumption survives. One of the boys says with an odd expression that surely nobody is about to suggest Seo Jungmeong killed this. A one-horned rhinoceros is a nightmare of an opponent, and the only reason this team was willing to engage one at all is that there are 5 of them. The idea of an E-grade Awakener soloing one is not something any of them will entertain. Somebody points out that they do not have to argue because the ranking is right there on the watch. A boy pulls up the score list and scrolls for the name. 46th place, Seo Jongmyeong, 256 points. Gang City number 2 high school. He stops. He rubs his eyes hard, checks again, confirms he read it correctly the first time, and makes a noise like a man who has seen something walk through a wall. The rest of the team crowds in, and one after another their faces come apart. Even Im Chong-won, who has been holding this group together since 9 this morning, opens her eyes wide and forgets to close her mouth. The same question surfaces in 5 heads at once, and one of them says it out loud. Since when are E-grade Awakeners like that? Outside the ruined town, 10 enormous projection screens hang above the open ground, each one fed by a military drone tracking one of the current top 10. Beneath them sit thousands of smaller panels carrying the fixed camera feeds from inside the ruins, packed so tightly that no individual image resolves until somebody promotes it to the main wall. Beside the screens runs the ranking board with every candidate's score. Below all of it, in the temporary auditorium, the education bureau and the principals and teachers of every school in the city sit reviewing other people's children. The man at the center of the conversation wears a suit and keeps his hair short. He is Yu Hang, principal of Gang City First High School. And out of the top 10 on that board, every name except one belongs to him. The exception came from Third High. Somebody remarks that Ju Myung-yang is already carving up the central region with 412 points. Somebody else says his light spirit Gale would keep pace with anyone, even at the provincial capital's examination. In the front row, a short heavyset man watches the first screen and nods slowly. This is Jang Moon-sun, director of the Gang City Education Bureau, and he says aloud that Ju Myung-kyung is the city's trump card and should break into the provincial top 100 this year. Yu Hang, sitting beside him, admits with some feeling that Gang City has not produced a candidate in the provincial top 100 for years. Gangnam Province is one of the Great Han Nation's crowded provinces, holding 24 prefecture-level cities and close to 34 county-level ones. Gang City sits at the far northern edge of it, thin on resources, dead last among those 24 on economic development. Myeonggan City, the provincial capital, allocates it a correspondingly thin education budget every year, and the martial arts exam results have reflected that for as long as anyone here has been employed. The city's best historical showing came 7 or 8 years ago, when a student awakened in A-rank ability and forced his way into the provincial top 100. A-rank awakeners have appeared in Gang City since, and none of them have repeated it. Jang Moon-san tells Yu Hang he has always been satisfied with First High's teaching, then adds that Third High has done well to finally squeeze a student in the top 10. Then he mentions that Second High is lagging, with a best placement of 18th. First High is the finest school in the city, and Second and Third are not close. In past examinations, the top 10 belonged to First High outright, and students from the other two simply did not appear on it. The principal of Third High is wearing a smile he cannot put away. Beside him, Joyo, principal of Second High, is having a harder time arranging his face, because in previous years, his school always sat comfortably above Third High, and this year the order has flipped. Joyo works down the score list and counts 8 Second High names inside the top 50. He recognizes most of them: Rimyong, Yanggyeon, Dangju, all out of Class 1, the rocket class where the school concentrates its best. Then he stops on a name he has never seen in his life: Seo Jungmyeong. Martial arts exam results decide how the Education Bureau distributes school funding for the second half of the year, so Joyo makes a point of knowing his own strong students. This one is not in his memory anywhere. He decides it must be a quiet student out of one of the parallel classes, and that he will ask the head teachers later, and then he lets it go. Second High has a great many students. 1 or 2 of them hiding their strength is not a scandal. The principal lets it go. 4 rows behind him, Jin Byom, head teacher of 3rd year class 5, is coming apart. He knows exactly who Seo Jungmyeong is. He knows the boy is an E-rank awakener because he personally pulled him aside before the exam to talk him out of this. And right now, the highest ranked student in the entirety of Class 5 is that same boy. Jin Byom turns the possibilities over and gets nowhere with any of them. Hidden strength maybe, but hiding does not transmute an E-rank ability into an S-rank 1. And the martial arts exam is genuine combat against ferocious beasts with no room anywhere in it for a fake. The main wall only carries the top 10, and the thousands of fixed camera panels underneath are packed too densely to search. There is no way for him to find one student in that mess. So Jin Byom sits in the back row with a question he cannot answer, and a screen he cannot access, itching in a place he cannot reach. Half an hour of running puts me inside the central region. The difference announces itself before the map confirms it. Roaring and howling carry from every direction at once, layered over each other, and the air has picked up something thick and bloody that was not out on the rim. I walk with the spear on my shoulder and a nutrition bar clamped in my teeth, and my boot comes down on an old plastic basin at the roadside. Decades of weather have made the plastic as brittle as a dried noodle brick, and it goes to powder under my heel without resisting at all. Waiwan town held close to 100,000 people once. When the defensive line broke, most of them had no time to evacuate, and somewhere between 50 and 60,000 died in the mouths of ferocious beasts. Out in the suburbs, there was nothing much to see. Here, past the boundary into what used to be the urban district, the evidence starts. Cars nobody got to drive away. Dark red stains dried into the broken ground, and human bones scattered across it that have not yet fully weathered. The city center took the worst of it, because that is where the people were, and it shows in the buildings. In every direction I look, not one structure is intact. The Great Han Nation runs its martial arts exam on live combat, and I suspect the strength assessment is only half the reason. The other half is standing where I am standing. This country protects its citizens to an extreme, and outside the unlucky few whose cities got opened, an ordinary person can live an entire life without seeing a ferocious beast in the flesh. For ordinary people, that is exactly right. For anyone being cultivated into an ability user, the sooner they see what these things actually do, the better. A low roar answers the thought, and something comes out of the rubble. It reads as a tiger at first glance, and then stops reading as one. It is a size class larger, its fur mixed yellow and cyan, and a whip-like tail drags on the ground behind it. What holds the eye are the blades growing off its forearms, unmistakably bone and somehow carrying a metallic shine. Blade-armed tiger, and this one is ranked. Judging the grade takes no expertise at all, because the whole answer is the length of those forearm blades. Under 20 centimeters means unranked, and over 20 means it carries a rank. These run a full 22 or 23, which puts it at rank 1 low tier. Next to the unranked ones I have been killing all morning, the aura coming off it is a different order of thing entirely. There is far more appetite in the amber of its eyes. Good luck then, a rank 1 waiting for me at the door. I drain the last of the energy bar, feel my stomach stop complaining, and toss the wrapper aside. Then I go at it rather than away from it, dragging the obsidian spear along the broken concrete so the friction throws sparks. A rank 1 beast has enough intelligence to understand an insult, and the sight of a weak-smelling human choosing to attack first offends it exactly as much as I hoped. It roars and comes at me like a tank, not even bothering to lead with the blades. That mass alone would end most candidates in this exam. I get my right hand into it and swing the dragging spear up in a full windmill, then drive it forward. My blood chi was already sitting at 141, which puts my physique above nearly everyone out here, and advanced spearmanship has multiplied my thrust speed several times over. The tiger never sees the strike. There is a soft, heavy sound, and its abdomen acquires a bowl-sized hole, deep enough through hide and dermis that the organs are visible past the blood coming out of it. It does not go down, it screams, and the wound seems to switch something on rather than off, and it throws itself forward again. Tenacious. That is what rank 1 buys you. I never expected a single thrust to finish it without the ability, so I set my feet and work. Advanced spearmanship turns the obsidian spear into a swimming dragon in my hands, and every thrust puts another hole in it. The length of the weapon means the tiger cannot land anything on me at all. Under a minute later, a rank 1 blade-armed tiger that would have killed the overwhelming majority of candidates in this examination goes down in a crash of dust. There is not a single drop of blood on my suit. This is the shameless part of fighting with a spear. If your strength is not enough, you die without ever touching the hem of the other side's clothes. The system credits 10 ability points for one rank 1 blade-armed tiger, roughly double what an unranked kill pays. That settles my schedule for the afternoon. I put the spear on my back and run for wherever the roaring is thickest. The ruins divide into outer, central, core, and innermost by the strength of what lives there. Most candidates have exactly enough strength to work the outer band. A minority push into the central. The core zone makes even first high's rocket class hesitate, and the innermost, where rank 2 beasts live, is somewhere almost nobody in this entire city can go. That ground is reserved for the monsters the provincial capital produces. With the Purple Sky Divine Thunder I qualify. What I do not have is fuel, so the plan stays disciplined. Work the central region now. Enter the core zone in the last 2 hours and let the lightning off the leash there. The real wilderness area does not come with color-coded difficulty bands, of course. Out there, a high-tier beast can step onto the road in front of you at any moment and the exam is your life. But this is the only place I will ever have access to, where ferocious beasts are stocked, sorted, and delivered, and I intend to strip it. So after the blade-armed tiger, I hunt. Find a beast, kill it, collect. Find the next one, kill it, collect. I do not need the ability for any of it, because physique and advanced spearmanship are already more than these things can answer. Somewhere in the rhythm I work out the pricing, Ability points track the beast's actual strength far more closely than its label. A one-horned rhinoceros can handle 3 or 4 shadow cats of its own tier at once, and accordingly a peak unranked rhinoceros pays out the same as a rank 1 low-tier shadow cat. Useful to know. Completely irrelevant to my behavior since my answer to every one of them is the same. I do not stop moving for a single minute. I am either killing something or on my way to the next thing to kill. The points on the panel climb, and my exam score climbs with them. I have no idea what that looks like from the outside. The martial arts exam runs a full 12 hours, and the principals and head teachers stay for all of it, partly because the Education Bureau director is seated among them and leaving early is unthinkable. The scores decide each school's funding for the back half of the year, so nobody is bored either. The military district feeds them, lunch and dinner both, since the day is too long to do otherwise. 4 hours in, at 1 in the afternoon, most candidates inside are starting their first energy bar and the staff are walking back from the cafeteria toward the stands. The second high contingent talks as it walks. First high is as monstrous as ever and owns nearly the whole top 10, which surprises nobody since first high takes the largest funding allocation and the best intake in the city every single year. Somebody points out that second high is actually having a decent run with 8 inside the top 50, when 5 or 6 would have been a good year. Somebody else says the problem is third high, who broke into the top 10 and left them looking bad by comparison. Then a teacher turns to a middle-aged man in a black suit and asks what the story is with Seo Jung-myung in his class, and how nobody had heard of a figure like that before. The man is Son Yang, head teacher of the rocket class, and his face is completely blank. He says Seo Jung-myung is not in his class, and that he was about to ask them the same question. That stops the group. If the boy is not in the rocket class, then who else in second high could possibly be posting numbers like that? After ability awakening, every school reshuffles its classes and concentrates the students with real potential into the rocket class, second high included. That is exactly why results in the martial arts exam come out of that class, and essentially nowhere else. At the back of the group, a bearded man falls into step beside Jin Byom and asks how Class 5 is doing. Then he answers his own question, announcing that his own class is doing well, with his best already inside the city's top 100. With the school's talent concentrated in one class, a top 100 placement out of an ordinary class is genuinely something. This is Lee Jun, head teacher of Class 4, with whom Jin Byom fell out years ago over something neither of them has agreed to forget. He has been working against him openly and quietly ever since. Jin Byom glances at him and says that is pretty good, in the flattest voice available. Lee Jun cannot keep the satisfaction off his face and adds that this year's examination bonus will run a little heavier on his side than on Jin Byom's. Head teacher bonuses are tied directly to their students' martial arts exam scores, and a student inside the city's top 100 is worth at least 10,000 won to the teacher who signed for him. In a city where a head teacher's monthly salary does not reach 6,000, 10,000 is a real number. He is enjoying this enormously. Then Jin Byom says that as it happens, Class 5 is not doing badly either, since one of his has made the top 50. Lee Jun retorts on reflex that those are rocket class students and that nobody out of Class 5 could reach that far. Then his own sentence catches up with him, his eyes go wide, and he asks whether that Seo Jung-myung is Jin Byom's. Jin Byom nods, once, calmly. Lee Jun demands to know why, when the entire staff was standing there asking which class Seo Jung-myung belonged to. Jin Byom puts on an expression of mild confusion and says he must not have heard them. You absolutely heard them. You have been standing here waiting for me the whole walk. Then Jin Byom adds, apologetically, that Seo Jung-myung only reached the top 50, and that the rocket class has someone as high as 18th. Lee Jun nearly chokes on it. The top 50 bonus is over 20,000 won, and comparing a parallel class against the class holding every elite in the school is not a comparison at all. The best student Lee Jun has produced in his entire career finished 64th. He takes several deep breaths and manages to congratulate his colleague on cultivating an extraordinary student in a voice with gravel in it. Jin Byom says it has nothing to do with him, that all of it is Jung-myung's own effort, and inside his chest something is doing a lap of honor. For years this man has stood a head above me at every opportunity. Enjoy the view from down there. The other teachers, learning that the mystery name belongs to Class 5, congratulate Jin Byom one. After another, one says he must be adept at teaching, to be the only ordinary class in the school with a student in the top 50. Another suggests he give a talk on teaching methods next semester. Even Sun Yang, whose rocket class skimmed off every strong student years ago, gives him a genuinely friendly smile, because producing that out of a parallel class means something. Back in his seat, Jin Byom immediately hunts the ranking board for the name, and finds it at 32nd place with 328 points. He stares at it, because the same name was 46th before lunch. Then, while he is still working out how a boy climbs 14 places over a meal, The name moves again and reappears at 25th with 372. 1,400 candidates are competing, so rankings shift constantly and nobody remarks on it. The exception is the shape of the shift. Big jumps happen at the bottom of the board, where hundreds of candidates sit within a few points of each other, and a single kill throws a name a dozen places. At the top 50, the scores spread out and the gaps get wide, so a strong candidate moves 1 or 2 places at a time. Climbing more than 10 in a single step, up there, essentially does not happen. So Jin Biome is not the only one who notices. The whole second high section starts talking at once. One teacher says the boy has already reached 25th, another asks whether that can possibly be right. A third points out they were gone for a single meal. Somebody asks again whether he is really from a parallel class, and whether he is not a bit much for one. 9 second high names now sit in the top 50. Above Seo Jungmyeong there are only 2 of them, at 18th and 22nd. In the front row, Joyo narrows his eyes at the board. He is a spirit-type C-rank ability user, only rank 1, but a spirit type of any rank holds a leaderboard in his head without effort. He has been paying particular attention to his own school's candidates. He watched the jump happen in real time and still does not believe it. He does the arithmetic anyway. Under the exam scoring, a peak unranked beast is worth 6 to 8 points and a rank 1 low tier is worth 14 to 16. The smartwatches report kills on an interval of roughly 4 seconds. The boy put on 44 points in a single interval, which means he killed 5 peak unranked beasts, or 3 rank 1 low tier beasts, inside 4 seconds. Either answer says the same thing. He may not be first tier alongside Ju Myung-yang, but that is top 10 strength, and Joyo has no idea when a student like that appeared in his school. Regulations require every secondary school principal in the country, along with every municipal education bureau director and deputy, to be a rank 1 ability user at minimum. So Joyo is not the only one reading the jump correctly. The other 2 principals saw it, and so did the director. Jang Munsen remarks that Principal Joe has better students than he lets on, and that this one clearly was not exerting himself earlier. Yu Hang adds, evenly, that the boy has roughly top 10 strength. Then Jang Munsen asks the obvious question, which is what ability the student awakened, and why nobody has heard of him before, because a candidate with that strength should not be a stranger. Joyo admits he does not know and calls the head teacher over. So Jin Biome, under the envious eyes of every second high teacher in the section, goes and sits down beside his principal. For an ordinary head teacher, a bureau director and a row of ability user principals are absolute authority, and it shows in how carefully he holds himself. He tells them that as far as he knows, Seo Jungmyeong awakened an E-rank ability called weak electricity. Joyo frowns and asks whether he is certain he is not misremembered. Jin Biome says he is certain, and adds with a rueful smile that before the exam he specifically pulled the boy aside to advise him against taking the martial arts track at all. Privately, he has spent the last hour wondering whether the awakening registration 2 years ago was simply entered wrong. Jang Munsen says that reaching this point on an E-rank ability means the boy must be extraordinary somewhere else, and then says it is a pity they still cannot see his footage. The live broadcast runs on a program the province customizes, and not even a bureau director can reach into it. Finding one candidate among the thousands of fixed camera panels is not a search, it is a wish. He decides the sensible thing is to wait, because at this rate the name will be in the top 10 before long, and he has the patience for that. Joyo agrees, then stops Jin Biome as he starts to rise and tells him to stay in the seat. Jin Biome's face lights up, because not every teacher gets to sit in this row. The board keeps moving, and one name keeps climbing. 25th, then 21st, then 16th, then 12th, then 9th. Under an hour, and the boy is in the top 10. Jin Biome is out of his chair, saying his name out loud, because a head teacher of a parallel class does not dream about this. Joyo lets out a long breath, because being held down by third high for an entire day would have looked very bad on him. And Jang Mun-san turns his eyes up to the wall and waits. The 9th place projection flickers and resolves into a tall young man in a black battlesuit, resolute-faced, eyes clear and steady. In his hands is a black spear a little over 2 meters long, its head sharp and streaked with bright red. Several ferocious beasts lie dead at his feet. One more crouches at a distance, not coming any closer. Black clothes, a spear, a ring of corpses. The composition arrives at the auditorium like a fist. Then the figure moves. One thrust, quick as something falling, and the last beast dies before it finishes deciding to run. The stands make a sound, and somebody says the thrust was fast. Somebody else says it was like a bolt of lightning coming down. A third points out that the attack speed belongs to a wind-type awakener, except this boy is supposed to be a lightning type. Fast, accurate, ruthless. That is the whole first impression, and it is unanimous. Jin Biome's eyes are the widest in the row. Second High runs live sparring courses, so he knows roughly what every student in his class can do, and Seo Jongmyung's performance in those classes could be described charitably as adequate. What is on the wall is not a version of adequate. He decides the boy hid this from him for 2 solid years and, a moment later, decides that he cannot even be angry about it, because with spearmanship like that, an E-rank ability is survivable. His warning before the exam, in hindsight, was noise. Joyo lets out a breath and says it is a powerful physique and formidable spearmanship, and then he says what a pity. Jang Munsan says the same thing with more feeling. Physique and weapon skill are genuine advantages during the awakener stage. The problem is what happens after. As the tiers climb, the edge that physique and technique provide shrinks, because an ability user, in the end, fights with an ability. Jang Munsan says out loud that with even a C-rank ability behind that physique and that spear, the city's first place would already be decided, and then he regrets the E-rank all over again. Jin Biome, who is not a principal and does not have to think in decades, sees it more simply. If the boy holds the top 10 to the end of the day, he is going to a good ability university. Even if he never kills another beast, he is going to an ability university, just a lesser one. Against the outcome Jin Biome was bracing for, which was a failed exam or a funeral, that is not a pity at all. The system tells me a rank 1 Shadow Cat is worth 9 points, and I am extremely happy about it. The central region is more densely stocked than I expected. Barely an hour inside, and I have put down more than 20 rank 1 low-tiered beasts on top of 10-odd peak unranked ones, and the panel now reads 312 ability points. The efficiency here is exactly what I came for. Then, I hear propellers. A drone comes in from a distance and settles into a hover some tens of meters over my head. I open the smartwatch and check, and there it is. 9th place, 607 points. So the tracking camera is mine now, which means everything I do from this moment is going out live to the whole city. When I finally use the ability, the purple sky divine thunder goes onto that wall in front of the education bureau. There is no chance of passing it off as an E-rank spark. Fine by me. The martial arts exam exists to measure strength and potential, and the better the score, the more choice I get afterward. Only an idiot trades points for secrecy. I open the panel while I walk. My level is still Awakener and my ability is still Purple Sky Divine Thunder at S. Physique 141 Blood Chi, Spear in 160 Hz, Spearmanship at Advanced, Lightning Gale Break still Beginner, 312 ability points banked, and no plus sign anywhere near level. 300 points and the level will not move. That narrows to 2 explanations. Either the cost of converting an Awakener into an ability user is simply higher than 300, where there is a precondition the system cannot buy its way past. Thinking about it for 2 seconds gives me the answer, because everybody on Blue Star knows it. Becoming an ability user requires learning an ability cultivation method first. The system cannot skip that step, and I do not have one, because even the worst ability cultivation method on the market runs past 1,000,001, and my net worth is under 50,000. I had quietly hoped the system would let me cheat that gate. It does not. Annoying but not fatal, because my combat power already sits close to a genuine ability user's even without the title. The exam ends. I go to an ability university. I learn a method there, and I convert. What actually matters right now is where 312 points go. Combat techniques can wait, so it all goes into the foundation. 200 into physique, 100 into physique, spirit. Blood Chi climbs from 141 to 181, hurts from 160 to 182, and the effect arrives before the numbers finish settling. Strength floods through me, my head clears past anything I have felt in this body, and every scrap of fatigue from a morning of running and fighting is simply gone. I laugh out loud and spin the obsidian spear into a flower, and the speed and weight behind it are on another level from 10 minutes ago. With this physique and this spearmanship, a rank 1 middle-tier beast in the core zone dies without me touching the lightning at all. No reason to linger in the central region then. The core zone is denser and stronger, and I have just gotten stronger too. I shake the spear once, and the inertia strips the blood off it clean, sling it across my back, check the map, and run. With my physique raised, my sprint is now a fraction quicker than Ju Myung-yang's, and he has a wind-type ability clearing the air in front of him. The drone falls in behind me like a tail. In the central region, a rank 1 low-tier Shadow Cat drops with its throat opened and blood going out of it in a sheet. Behind it, Dang Ki straightens out of the stripe with the dagger still in her hand. A purple-black veil of energy in the shape of a cat clings around her, and a pair of cat ears sits on her head, uncontrolled and rather lively about it. This is the special type B-rank ability Shadow Cat, and while it is running her rushing speed, her reaction speed and her attack power all climb hard. It is the only reason a girl who is still an Awakener can kill a ranked beast at all. She has also been practicing a genuine ability cultivation method for years, so the physical base underneath is nothing to dismiss. A rank 1 low tier is her ceiling and she knows it. That is why she works the central region and does not go anywhere near the core zone and its middle tier beasts. She drops the shadow cat form the instant the kill is done, to save what she has left, and the veil dissolves while her vertical pupils round back out. Her watch says 12th place, 567 points. Her ranking is dropped a spot, and she looks up to find out who pushed past her. She does not find a stranger. She finds a name she has known her whole life sitting at 9th with 607 points, out of second high. It takes her a long moment to come back to herself, with a straight-backed figure carrying a long spear surfacing in her memory. So that was him last night at the Thunder Martial Arts School. She had allowed herself the thought that this was a coincidence of names, and it does not survive contact. Two students at the same school with the same name is not a coincidence anyone should be asked to believe. Stacked on top of the doubt that started in that wrecked training room, the conclusion is unavoidable, which leaves her with a question that will not sit still. How does a boy with an E-rank ability do any of this? Her cousin apparently is not nearly as honest as he looks. Out in the outer region, Joel, currently twice his normal size, stares at the ranking projection with an expression of profound personal loss. If he had known, he would have called the man daddy on the spot and grabbed hold of his leg with both arms. Compared to a martial arts exam score, what is a little dignity? Im Chungwon's team has been watching the same name since it was 46th, and now that it is inside the top 10 they have run out of ways to say it. One of them says he is too fierce. Another points out that he is now the highest ranked candidate in the whole of second high. Im Chungwon looks at the board with something complicated on her face. Since Seo Jung Myung is in the top 10, she tells her team they had better work harder and push for the top 300. She does not know how he is doing it, and she is clear-eyed about the fact that they are not him. The top 300 would be plenty. I know none of this. I am running. The enhanced physique makes the run much faster than the last one, and my position in the central region was never far from the boundary. A little over 30 minutes puts me inside the red on the map. The core zone used to be the prosperous heart of Wiwon town. The buildings stand taller here, and the ruined facings still carry traces of whatever they cost when somebody built them. What matters more is the stock. Beasts here run from rank 1 low tier to rank 1 middle tier, and there is not a single unranked animal left in the mix. Any candidate confident enough to walk in here is at minimum among the top 5 in the city. I am the exception, and I have been sloppy. I was not hunting on the way over, so I killed maybe 4 or 5 things in half an hour, and my ranking is slipped to 10th instead of climbing. Find a big enough horde and that fixes itself. Then I take first outright. So I do what worked before and go toward the noise. The ruined city is a paradise for these animals, roars rising and falling all around me, and I stand still long enough to pick the densest direction, which is southeast, and then I move. Most candidates in here are creeping, terrified that noise will bring something down on them. I go through the streets like a leopard with an appointment, and 50 kilograms of obsidian spear across my back does not slow me by a step. Wind pulls past my ears, ruins strobe by on both sides, and once or twice I catch a beast moving in the rubble and do not even feel the urge to stop for it. The roaring gets close. A rusted bus lies across the end of the road, blocking it, and I do not slow down at all. At the last moment I drive off my legs and go 5 or 6 meters into the air, and my boots come down on the roof. From up here the whole thing is laid out. It used to be a fitness square and the derelict equipment is still bolted to the ground between the bodies. 10 blade-armed tigers are living in it. There are enough of them that the air carries a heavy animal stench layered over the blood smell, and I feel my eyebrows pull together at it. 10, and every one a blade-armed tiger. Beasts sort into gregarious and solitary types, and these are the social kind, so what I have found is a proper pack. An ordinary candidate seeing this would go around the long way and thank his ancestors. I look at it and feel my blood come up, because this is precisely what I came southeast for. A pack that holds together needs a king strong enough to suppress every member of it. I find him in the middle of the square, lying beside a half-eaten one-horned rhinoceros carcass. He is obviously larger than the rest, limbs thick as pillars, the bone blades on his forelegs longer and heavier than anything else here. Rank 1 middle tier. Kill all of this and my panel gets very interesting. Standing 1 meter 8'6" on top of a bus does not make for a subtle entrance. Every tiger in the square notices me at once, though the king stays lazily where he is. The other 9 get up together, ferocity coming into their eyes, and start pacing toward the bus. They are not hurrying, and that somehow makes it worse. 9 animals the size of cars converging at a walk carry a pressure that a charge does not. This is exactly why beast packs are such a problem, and why even a rank 1 high-tier animal would think twice before starting something with these 9. I jump down off the roof and land in front of them. One of them makes a low sound, and the 9 split apart with unsettling coordination, then come at me from separate angles at once. So a pack under a king learns rudimentary formation work. Noted. I take the obsidian spear off my back in a reverse grip. The bus sits less than 30 meters from the square, which is nothing to animals at this tier, and they close it before I finish exhaling. 5 of them lead, launching into the air together, and their bodies fill every direction in front of me. Behind me is the bus, so there is nowhere left to go, which would matter if going anywhere with a plan. I set my hands and put the whole 2 meters and one of the spear into a windmill until the shaft is a black disc, a propeller running at speed. The 5 committed animals understand something is wrong at roughly the moment they arrive, and by then they are already in it. The spinning head goes through them like a mill, opening their heads up, and the impact throws all 5 backward off their line into the dirt. They do not die, bloody to the bone and knocked flat, and still breathing. Pure muscle only takes it so far. That windmill is not a combat technique, just strength, and if it had been a technique folding ability into the motion, those 5 would have ended in that single second. Not a problem. It only means I have to finish them by hand. I go forward. The remaining 4 try to close the lane and my footwork takes me around all of them. Then the obsidian spear works down the line of the 5 wounded animals and puts each of them out. That is when the king finally decides this concerns him. He stands, walks out in front of the 4 survivors, and roars. And whether that is grief over his dead or simple offense at my face, he brings all 4 with him when he charges. I pull the spear free with a ring of metal and go to meet 5-blade armed tigers on my own. And there is nothing in me that wants to be anywhere else. These animals are not stupid. This particular 5 have hunted together for a long time and have certainly killed powerful things doing it, and dropped into a city they would go through a 100-man elite squad without slowing down. What they have not fought before is reach plus speed plus somebody who reads them. I turn into a black shape moving through the gaps between them, and not one of them lands anything on me, while every thrust I throw goes into a vital. They die outright or they take a wound that finishes them a moment later. Under 2 minutes the square is quiet. I look down at the king, dead at my boots, and shake my head. A rank 1 middle tier could not even make me reach for the lightning. Honestly, I attacked 10 of them because Purple Sky Divine Thunder was sitting in my back pocket as insurance. I did not know my own ceiling well enough to be sure. Now I know, and the insurance never came out. The panel says this single square paid 106 ability points. At this rate, by 9 tonight, I do not want to guess the number. No point standing here doing arithmetic when the harvest is the whole job. I wipe the spear, put it away, and go find the next place. Every secondary school in Gang City puts its first and second years in front of the live broadcast on exam day. Partly it is so the younger students see exactly how bloody and unsentimental this examination is. Partly it is so they learn what these animals do before they have to meet one. On the second high playground, a projection identical to the military districts hangs in the air over packed stands, and the students have been watching for hours. In normal years, the top 10 belongs entirely to first high, so their conversation is about other people's schools. This year there is a name of their own up there, and when Seo Jung-myung hit 9th place the entire school came off its seats. The single thrust Shadow Cat kill made it worse in the best way. One student says the strike was unbelievably cool. Another says he had never heard the name until today, and that, as of now, this is his idol. A third simply says their senior is tall and terrifying and wonderful. Where the bureau director and the principals sighed over him, these students are unreservedly delighted, and a fair number of them have quietly adopted him as a benchmark. Then he spends half an hour running without killing anything, and the mood curdles. His ranking slips to 10th and the stands get anxious, wishing they could climb into the screen and take his ranking back for him. Somebody sighs that second high finally produced a top 10 senior and he has no staying power. Somebody agrees against his own will. A third gives up entirely and goes back to watching the light windsword in first place, and a good portion of the audience drifts to other feeds with him. Then a voice from somewhere in the stands shouts that Senior Seo has found beasts, and every head snaps back. On the screen, he is standing on a bus roof, and below him the square is full of blade-armed tigers. The stands go from disappointment to panic in 1 second. Somebody demands to know why he is not leaving. Somebody else points out that the tigers have already spread out around him, so leaving is off the table, and asks why he has not triggered the safety ball yet. When 5 of them launch at him at once, several girls put their hands over their eyes. The devouring never happens. What happens instead is a spear turning into a disc, and 5 car-sized animals being swatted out of the air. The whole playground makes one sound. Somebody asks whether a spear can even be used like that. Somebody says the strength involved is absurd, that an ordinary person swinging a spear into 5 blade-armed tigers would be flattened by the mass alone. Another decides their senior must have secretly awakened a physical enhancement ability because there is no other way. Whatever complaints existed 10 minutes ago are gone without a trace. Then he goes into the pack. The screen gives them a black shape moving between 5 animals faster than the drone can hold him centered, breaking through and killing and breaking through again. The black spear takes on so much blood that it reads bright red. Nobody in the stands is uncomfortable watching it, and most of them are exhilarated. Ferocious beasts are the enemy of the species, and a one-sided slaughter of them plays to a teenage crowd as pure satisfaction. The tall figure moving through them carries a specific kind of violence in every thrust, and it does not come across as gore. It comes across as beautiful, and it has 3,016 and 17-year-olds flushed to the ears. The king goes down, and the stands let out their breath together like diners who have been fed properly for once. Then the feed jumps, and the name lands at 6th place with 796 points. That baffles them. He was on 634 a moment ago, so the kill just paid nearly 160 points, and even 4 or 5 rank 1 beasts should not pay that much at once. Then somebody notices the map and shouts that Senior CO is not in the middle zone anymore, that he is inside the red. Everybody checks. He is in the core zone, which reframes the last 5 minutes entirely. Somebody says he knew those tigers looked too big, that they were never peak unranked. Somebody says killing rank 1 beasts like that is chopping vegetables. And the whole stand finally understands why their senior spent half an hour running without fighting, because he was not running out of steam, he was traveling. The comparison writes itself, and one student says it out loud. Even Ju Myung-kyung in first place can only kite a pack like that, circling and picking. Nobody they have watched today wipes one out in a single pass. Outside the ruins, the auditorium is having the same experience with less shouting. When Seo Jung-myung faced the pack alone, every teacher in the stands turned to look, and every one of them assumed he was about to run. In 9 hours, not one candidate has voluntarily engaged a beast pack inside the core zone. What follows drops jaws down the entire row of principals. Jin Byom's face has gone red to the ears with an excitement he is not attempting to hide, because a head teacher shares in this. Jo-yo, who is not an emotional man, is staring with his eyes wide, saying out loud that the boy is actually this strong. Jang Moon-san is excited about something else entirely, and he says it twice. That is advanced spearmanship. It takes an ordinary person decades of daily work to bring a weapon skill to intermediate. Advanced is not something most people reach in a lifetime of trying. The student on that wall is 18 years old. Then he thinks about the E-rank ability again, and slaps his thigh and says what a pity, out loud, with real pain in it. On today's showing, the boy is already stronger than Ju Myung-kyung. With even a mediocre ability behind him, he could break a city record that has stood for years and force his way into the provincial top 50. The E-rank guarantees he runs out of road later. The teachers around him catch up in a wave. One says no wonder he is like that, it is advanced spearmanship. Another says the boy is 18 at most, and asks what kind of comprehension that requires. A third says the geniuses at the provincial capital do not have advanced weapon skills. Yu Hang turns to Jo-yo and congratulates him, saying that this year's city first place is going to second high. He is not happy about it, and he says it generously anyway. After that fight, anyone with working eyes can see the boy has passed Jo Myung-yang and that first place is a matter of time. Jo-yo says the principal flatters him, and that the exam is not over. He is being extremely modest for a man who has waited years for this. First high holds the resources and the intake, and every year after ability awakening a number of second high's better students transfer out for the terms first high offers them. Jo-yo has carried a quiet hostility about that for a long time with no opportunity to express it. The opportunity has finally arrived, and now that it has, he finds he does not need to say anything at all. Jang Moon-san, recovered, tells him that 2 candidates from Gang City in the provincial top 100 would be a fine result. Second high has done very well to nurture a student like this, he says, and he intends to propose a commendation to the city government once the exam closes. Jo-yo thanks him with his whole face. Ability users who take principal posts have generally given up on climbing much further in strength and moved their ambitions into administration. A commendation means resources for the school and a great deal for the man who runs it. Entering the education bureau one day stops being unthinkable. He sits there with more feeling in his chest than he has had in years, thinking that he never expected second high to have a day like this. Jang Moon-san turns out to be right about the rest of it too. Over the following stretch, the score climbs like something with a rocket under it, and in under an hour, Seo Jung-myung passes Ju Myung-young and takes first. By then, it is 3 in the afternoon, with 6 hours left to run. In a collapsed residential block inside the core zone, more than a dozen ferocious beasts have split into 2 sides, and are trying to eat each other. On one side there are 4 one-horned rhinoceroses, and on the other there are 8 blade-armed tigers. At even numbers, the rhinoceroses would end it quickly, but 8 against 4 narrows the gap to almost nothing, with the tigers holding a slight edge. They have been at it long enough to open a great many wounds on each other, and not long enough for anything to die. These animals do not disengage once they start, so they finish, or they are finished. Then one of the tigers lifts its head, scents something, and stops mid-charge. It lowers its body and puts a warning growl toward the gate of the compound, and that growl runs through the yard like a current. Every tiger and every rhinoceros stops fighting at the same moment, turns to face the gate together, and settles into a posture that can become a charge without warning. Into all of that, a young man walks. Black battlesuit, combat boots, a tall lean frame. His eyes are clear and bright, and the look in them belongs to a wolf hunting alone. A thick dark spear rides casually on one shoulder, and the head of it throws a cold grim line of light in the afternoon sun. 12 of them. Very good. I slap the butt of the spear with my right hand, and let the whole weapon flip up into my grip, and I am one step into the charge when something to my right registers. I stop, and turn my head toward a dilapidated building, and tell whoever is in the shadow of it to come out, because I have already found him. A good-looking boy with a long sword strapped across his back walks into the open and says that the first place has sharp senses. As expected. Jo Myung-young. Outside the exam venue, he looked like an illustration of a chivalrous hero. Now his hair is a mess and his suit carries dark red stains, and whether the blood is his or something else's is not obvious. In fairness, nearly everyone still alive in here looks like this, myself included, though a spear splashes less of it back onto me than a sword does. I ask how he knew who I was. I would not have assumed a famous first high star could pick a second high nobody out of a lineup. He explains, smiling, that very few people dare come into the core zone at all, and that all of them are old acquaintances of his. A stranger walking in can only be the candidate sitting in first place. Fair enough. Attacking another candidate during this exam costs you your eligibility permanently, and we both have drones parked over our heads, so a sneak attack is not a thing I need to spend attention on. I shoulder past the conversation and start toward the yard full of beasts. He puts out a hand and stops me, sounding genuinely startled, and asks whether I mean to take all of that on alone. I look at him and I feel my own expression change. He wants to know whether I plan to handle it alone, or he wants a share. Every animal in that yard is points, and every animal in that yard is ability points. I am not giving away either. Whatever is on my face lands hard, because he goes visibly stiff, the way a man does when something large has decided to look at him. He recovers fast and says quickly that there are 2 rank 1 middle-tier kings in there, that I cannot handle that alone, and that between the 2 of us there might be a chance. He has been waiting in that shadow for both packs to grind each other down before making a move. Both sides are wounded, but their numbers have not dropped and they are all in a violent state. Walking in right now, by his reading, is suicide. So he was offering cooperation, not stealing. My mood improves considerably. I clap him on the shoulder, tell him there is no need and that I can do it, and go. He calls something after me and gives up when he sees I am already moving. Then he raises his sword and settles in to watch, eyes locked on me, ready to come in if this goes badly. It does not go badly. What Jo Myung-young sees is a man who has switched on an invincible mode. The black spear stops looking like an object and starts looking like an effect. And every time it goes forward, something in that yard stops living. Inside 3 minutes, 8 of the 12 are down and only 4 remain. He has trouble processing it. 2 hours ago, he did not know this person existed. Then the name came up the board like a comet, into the top 10, and a little over 10 minutes ago it took his first place away from him. He had spent the interval imagining what monstrous ability the man must be hiding. Something at least a rank. Instead, the answer appears to be a stick with a point on it, used to inflict a level of suppression he cannot even picture himself achieving. He swallows, mouth dry, and wonders whether he simply missed some enhancement ability being used. I finish the last of them, and the second blade-armed Tiger King hits the ground. The notifications come through in a stack. A rank 1 low-tier one-horned rhinoceros pays 12 points. A rank 1 low-tier blade-armed tiger pays 10, and the rank 1 middle-tier blade-armed tiger pays 15. The list keeps going, and the expression on my face is frankly indecent. There is no describing how good this feels. The catch is that it ends at 9 o'clock. Once this exam closes, there will never again be a place that stocks hundreds of ferocious beasts and invites me in to strip it. So the only correct response is to stop savoring and start moving. I raise a hand at Jo Myung-young and go. By the time he reacts, I am 7 or 8 meters down the street, and he shouts after me, asking whether what I have is an enhancement type ability. I call back over my shoulder that it is a lightning type, and then I am gone around the corner. He stands there for a while with his mouth open. There was nothing whatsoever about the last 3 minutes that resembled a lightning type. He decides resentfully that if the man did not want to disclose his ability, he could have declined politely instead of insulting his intelligence, and that this is a person with a genuinely nasty personality. Then he thinks about the look he got earlier and gets more annoyed, worried about someone stealing his kills apparently. From whom? Aside from a freak like that, who in this exam could clear a pack like the one in that yard? And the core zone is full of beasts, so there is no shortage to fight over in the first place. Also, he adds to himself, walking off and still muttering, I was standing in that shadow for over 10 minutes. Between the 2 of us, the one who stole a kill was you. Grumbling aside, Jo Myung knows the truth of it. The man is stronger than him. He cannot even place what he is dealing with. Nothing about that aura reads as an ability user, and yet rank 1 low-tier beasts die under that spear like vegetables under a knife. He complains inwardly for a while longer, and then gets back to work, because second place is still worth having and it will not defend itself. So he goes back to hunting through the core zone for anything he can handle. The first 2 hours are ordinary enough, with stray rank 1 middle-tier animals turning up, and the occasional small group of 3 or 4. By the 3rd hour, he notices the streets thinning out. By the 4th, he has covered half the district without laying eyes on a single ferocious beast. He asks the empty street where they have all gone, and kicks a fist-sized chunk of gravel in frustration. He is an ability user, so the pebble leaves his boot like a bullet and slams into a stand of rusted iron billboards with a crash that rolls down the whole block. On any other day of his life, he would never make a noise like that inside a beast zone. Today, he is hoping it works. It does not bring him a beast, it brings him 3 people, 2 boys and a girl, waving as they come down the road. They are first high rocket class like him, all rank 1 low-tier ability users, all old acquaintances, and between the 4 of them they hold 4 of the top 5 places in the city. He asks, suspiciously, how they ended up traveling together. The bald boy on the right shrugs and tells him to go ask Seo Jung-myung about it. The girl in the middle, petite and carrying a saber nearly as long as she is, explains in a soft voice that Seo Jung-myung killed all the beasts in the core zone. With nothing left to hunt, they gave up and grouped. The long-haired boy on the left adds that they have been wandering for over half an hour. They heard the crash and came running in genuine excitement, he says. And it turned out to be him. Jo Myung-young refuses it on reflex and says that is impossible. The core zone was stocked with at least 300 or 400 ferocious beasts for this examination. Nobody empties that in an afternoon. The bald boy says he can tell nobody has checked the board in a while, opens his watch and throws the ranking into the air between them. First place, Seo Jung-myung, 3,435 points. Second place, Ju Myung-young, 1,103. And third place, Oh Ho, 945. Ju Myung-young's eyes come very close to leaving his head. The bald boy shuts the projection off and does the arithmetic out loud, because he has clearly done it several times already. A rank 1 low tier is worth roughly 14 to 16 points, and a middle tier roughly 20 to 22. Subtract the 700 and sum the man earned in the middle region and there are still over 2,500 points left. That comes to nearly 200 ferocious beasts killed inside the core zone by one person. Add the 4 of them working the same district all afternoon, and that is the entire stock. Ju Myung-kyung has nothing to say. Since the moment he walked through the gate this morning, his single thought has been to kill as many beasts as possible for the highest score he could reach. That the beasts might run out was not a possibility that had ever occurred to him. Then he remembers the look he got in that yard, and everything makes a horrible kind of sense. The man was not being greedy at all. He had simply done this arithmetic hours ago. Outside the ruins, the auditorium has stopped pretending to be composed. 3,435 points guarantees the provincial top 10. It is also by a distance the best result Gang City has ever produced. Teachers are saying the number out loud to each other as though repetition will make it more believable. And somebody keeps saying that the record is broken, that Seo Jung-myung broke the city record. Joyo is too hot in his own skin to sit still, saying he never expected anyone could reach this on a single spear. He knows exactly what the provincial top 10 means. Those are the students the country's 10 best ability universities fight each other to sign. Jang Moonsan is grinning without any dignity at all and calls the boy a Keelan born out of the wilderness. He has entirely stopped caring about the E rank ability, because with results like these, a candidate could have awakened an F rank, and schools would still be brawling over him. Then he says, half admiring and half unsettled, that the boy is genuinely mad. 3 or 4 hours, and the core zone is effectively empty. He suspects they have just watched a battle maniac being born. Jo Myung-kyung and his friends were guessing at the stocking numbers. The director does not have to guess. The core zone was loaded with 450 rank 1 low-tier beasts and 40 rank 1 middle-tier ones. Subtract what the animals did to each other and what the other 4 candidates managed between them. One 18-year-old killed close to half of everything in that district by himself, inside 4 hours. Jin Byom offers the one piece of context he has. Seo Jung-myung lost both parents to a beast tide when he was small, and that may be why he hates these things the way he clearly does. Jang Moon-san nods slowly, and the warmth goes out of his face. Sooner or later, he says, our species will wipe every one of them off this planet. Joyo, thinking about what ferocious beasts are, agrees in a voice just as cold. There will be such a day. The other 3 want to know what Seo Jung-myung's ability is, and they want to know immediately. Jo Myung-young tells them he could not identify the type. What he could read was the physique, and by his estimate the man is carrying at least 180 points of blood chi. The bald boy clicks his tongue at that, because an ordinary awakener sits around 100, and the 4 of them, as rank 1 low-tier ability users, are only a little past 130. 180 is a number none of them expect to touch this year. The long-haired boy says that kind of physique means an enhancement type, and he says it in a voice with vinegar in it. Ju Myung-yang shakes his head and tells them the man is still an awakener. He does not argue with the enhancement guess, because privately he assumes the same thing. The petite girl with the broadsword blinks and asks whether that means 4 ability users cannot match 1 awakener. The question lands in the middle of the group and kills the conversation dead. After a while, Ju Myung-yang says, dryly, that Mang Che is as good as ever at putting her finger on the point. Mang Che is the only girl among them, a B-grade enhancement type currently sitting 4th on the board, and the saber she carries is nearly as long as she is tall. The contrast used to bother people, and everyone here stopped noticing it years ago. She sticks her tongue out and says she was only startled. The bald boy calls Seo Jo-myung a freak in a complicated voice, and then moves to the practical question. There is about an hour and a half left in the examination. Every beast in the core zone is dead, and standing around does not pay. He asks whether they have to go back to the middle region. Jo Myung-kyung works it out loud. The middle region is over half an hour away, and half an hour of the last 90 minutes spent walking is unacceptable. Worse, most of what lives there is peak unranked, which pays badly. So instead of going backward, he proposes the innermost core zone. That lands hard. The innermost holds rank 1 upper tier beasts at minimum, and somewhere in it there will be a rank 2 beast king. For rank 1 low tier ability users, walking in there is betting their lives against the paper. The bald boy hesitates, then nods and says that going in alone is suicide, but that 4 of them together can at least try. The martial arts exam decides a life in a single day. For ability users like them, a bad result is not fatal, but a better university is worth reaching for. Mang Che laughs and says she has no objection. The long-haired boy says it seems to be the only option. Jo Myung-yang, who does not linger over decisions once they are made, tells them to move and takes them out. I am walking a street in the core zone with a spear across my back, and I am not looking at any of it. The concrete is split and overgrown, and the shops on both sides have collapsed in on themselves, and none of that holds my attention, because the panel does. My level reads Awakener and my ability reads Purple Sky Divine Thunder at S. Physique 181 Blood Chi, Spearmanship at Advanced, Lightning Gale Break still beginner, and at the bottom, 2,413 ability points. Everything the core zone had converted into that one number. There is still no plus sign next to level, which settles the question I raised hours ago. It is not a matter of price. Without an ability cultivation method I cannot convert, and no amount of bank points changes that. What matters more is that I have stripped this district bare. If I want to keep earning, the only ground left is the innermost core zone, and there is a rank 2 beast in there, so I go in heavier than I am now. I click the plus beside Lightning Gale Break. 100 points takes it from beginner to intermediate, and 200 more takes it from intermediate to advanced. 300 points, spent in about 2 seconds, and the technique settles into me as though I have thrown it tens of thousands of times. Now I like my odds against whatever is waiting in there. I am being deliberately stingy with the rest. I have over 2,000 points and I am not pouring them into attributes, because I raised Blood Chi to 180 early, and that plus this upgrade is the whole expenditure. 3 reasons. Points are finite, and once tonight ends there will never be another place that hands them out like this. Once I am inside an ability university, they will have larger uses than shaving a few seconds off a fight. And most of all, what I am carrying is already enough for what lives in the innermost. I drink the last 2 energy bars in the pack one after the other, check the map, and go. Against the whole examination map, the innermost core zone is barely a dot. On the ground, it is an entire residential community, a place called Gyeomsa-won, and dozens of ferocious beasts are resting in its central open space. What makes it strange is the mix. Shadow cats, iron-haired boars, one-horned rhinoceroses, all lying in the same yard. These animals are cruel by nature, and different groups treat each other as food, so a mixed gathering at that size means one thing. Something in there suppresses all of them. The something is crouched at the far end of the yard, and it is a gray bear the size of a tank. Its eyes are scarlet, and resting is all it is doing, and the pressure coming off it still fills the whole compound. Up on an 8th floor rooftop, Jo Myung-kang and his 3 companions look down into the yard, and every one of their faces changes at once. He says it out loud. A bloodthirsty, violent bear. Even at identical rank, beasts are not equal. A shadow cat will never beat a one-horned rhinoceros at the same tier, because some species simply suppress others. The bloodthirsty violent bear is one of the notoriously bad ones. Beyond the raw strength there is the fur, which mats and knots into a layer tougher than E-grade alloy, and which a missile does not reliably open. Jo Myung-kyung smiles the way people smile when there is nothing funny happening. Against an ordinary rank 2 beast, 4 of them together could hold for a while. Against that bear, a single paw the size of an iron cooking pot lands once and the group ends. The bald boy points out the other problem. They might not survive long enough to meet the bear at all, because the moment they step into that yard, 30-odd rank 1 upper tier beasts come with it. 4 of them together can handle 3 or 4 of those. There are more than 30 down there. Mang Che pouts and says the gap between the core zone and the innermost is ridiculous. The strongest thing in the core zone was rank 1 middle tier. Here the ordinary stock is rank 1 upper tier, and the king is rank 2. And she asks how anybody is supposed to play that. The long-haired boy grinds out that he heard before the exam that this year's paper was set by old Yu and had not believed it, and that this combination settles the question. The examiners who set the Gangnam province paper rotate every year, and old Yu is the cruelest of them. His examinations run at more than double the usual mortality rate. Zhou Myengqiang says, evenly, that rank 1 upper tier plus a rank 2 king is the fixed national combination for the innermost zone. Old Yu simply swapped in the worst possible rank 2. There's nobody to blame for that except themselves for not being strong enough. The martial arts exam has always been about finding the best of the best, and the innermost zone is the last and hardest question on the paper. Only the people who can answer it are genuinely heaven's chosen. He is a genius in Gang City, watched by everybody. Across the whole province, he does not have the qualifications to touch the final question. The long-haired boy's mouth curls, and he says that Seo Jungmyung spent the whole day scrabbling for his 3,000 points, and it still comes to less than what is sitting in that yard. He is not wrong about the numbers. In the innermost zone, a rank 1 upper tier beast is worth 100 points, and killing the rank 2 king pays 4,000 in a single stroke. Then he adds that what humanity needs is powerhouses with real combat strength, and asks what use there is in killing more trash. Zhu Myengqiang frowns and lets it go, because the underlying logic is not wrong. This examination is meant to find the strong, not to reward killing machines that farm low-tier animals. Blue Star's whole situation runs the same way. If every 9th order beast emperor among the beast factions were killed, the rest would collapse on their own, and until they are killed, no amount of ordinary corpses matters. That is exactly why the innermost zone pays what it pays, so that one rank 2 kill can flatten the entire field, and why every candidate chasing a provincial championship must target the rank 2. He adds one sentence to himself and does not say it aloud. If Seo Jongmyong is useless, what does that make the rest of us, sitting below him on the board? He tells him to stop talking. The plan is to go down and try to lure 2 or 3 rank 1 upper tier beasts away from the yard and kill what they can. They cannot walk into an open space guarded by a rank 2, so pulling them out one at a time is the only version of this that is not a funeral. It is also entirely possible that nothing comes out, in which case they go back to the middle region and salvage what they can. They banter about it on the way to the stairs. One of them observes that baiting a yard guarded by a rank 2 is a fairly advanced form of suicide, and another agrees and points out they have to try anyway. Then a black figure comes down the road below them at a speed none of them expected, crossing the last stretch to the gate of Jiam Swan in a few seconds. Zhou Myongyang's eyes narrow, and he says the name. The others have never seen Seo Jongmyong, so they abandon the staircase and crowd back to the parapet. An ability user's eyesight makes 8 floors nothing, and the figure below resolves clearly. He is tall, his face set, and his eyes are as sharp as a bird of praise. More than half of the black battlesuit has been dyed dark red by a day nobody up here can reconstruct. The black spear across his back has lost its edge entirely and gone jagged, like a kitchen knife taken through too many bones. Somehow that ruined weapon is what gives the whole silhouette its menace. Mang Che's eyes light up and she says, out loud, that he is very good looking. The bald boy is looking at the spear instead, marveling that an F-rank alloy weapon has been worn into that condition. F-rank alloy is not soft, and getting it to that state means an unimaginable number of fights. The long-haired boy snorts and says walking into a beast yard like that is asking to die. He gets his wish about 4 seconds later. The yard notices the intruder. The noise starts, and more than a dozen rank 1 upper-tier beasts come off the ground and charge. Mang Che cries out. Zhu Myongqiang frowns and says the man is being reckless, and at this distance there is no helping him, because by the time they got down those stairs it would already be finished. The long-haired boy laughs coldly and says that is what first place does to a person, and that the spear is not going to save him. For a moment it looks like he is right, because the first few beasts get handled. The ones behind them do not, and the black figure disappears under more than a dozen bodies. Zhou Myongqiang finds he does not quite believe it. A few hours ago this man came up the board like a comet, and now he is apparently going out the same way. What he cannot work out is the thinking, since everyone knows what lives in the innermost zone. Nobody walks into the middle of that yard in plain view. He also notes, sourly, that the man lied to him, since from beginning to end there has not been a trace of anything lightning type. Then he decides that when a person dies the lamp goes out, and being lied to by a corpse is not worth carrying. Then every one of them feels their heart stumble in their chest, and a low voice reaches them across the whole compound. Divine thunder. A purple shockwave goes out from the center of the pile. Every beast it touches turns charred black and is thrown 4 or 5 meters backward. The dense mass of animals is erased off that patch of ground the way a hand takes chalk off a board. In the cleared space stands one tall figure, and purple bolts crawl and leap around him without settling, like something greeting a king it has been waiting for. That was not a shockwave. It was a high-voltage grid condensed out of purple thunder. Jo Myung-yang stares at it for a long moment before he can produce a sentence. And what he produces is that Seo Jung-myung really is a lightning type after all. The purple sky divine thunder spreads more than 3 meters out from me and holds there. The sound of it is thousands of birds screaming at once, and inside that radius, nothing else is permitted to be alive. 3 meters out there are charred animals, and inside 3 meters there is only me. Relying on physique alone against that many rank 1 upper-tier beasts was always going to be a stretch. I raise my left hand and watch the arcs move across my fingers, and it is difficult not to enjoy it. An ability's output scales with its grade and with the 2 basic attributes underneath it, and my 180 in each has made this far heavier than it was the night I claimed it. It is now lethal to rank 1 upper-tier animals, which is not something an S-rank ability should be able to say in the hands of a Bear Awakener. Overbearing, that is the word for an S-grade ability, and I mean it as a compliment. The dozen-odd casualties have gotten the yard's owner's attention. The bloodthirsty violent bear comes up off its haunches and stands, 5 meters tall and over 3 wide, and the closest comparison I have is a heavy tank deciding to stand upright. Summer sunsets run late in Gangnam, and the last of the light is behind it, so its face stays in shadow while the 2 red eyes come through perfectly well. I lick my lips at a bloodthirsty violent bear. This year's paper really was set by somebody with a grudge. Under the king's aura, the dozen surviving beasts that had been cringing at the edge of my radius find their courage again, dropping low, showing teeth, growling in a ring around me. Excellent staging, and somebody should film a horror movie here. The problem is that when the real fight starts, these small fry will get underfoot, so I clear the field first. I take the purple sky divine thunder, which has been running on the surface of my skin all day, and I push it inward. My body convulses once, the way it would with a needle full of something illegal. Then the purple floods my eyes, and power comes up out of my limbs and my bones all at once. There it is. That is the feeling. An ability is native to the person holding it and answers like a limb, so beyond the refined applications, the combat techniques, there are blunt ones. Ju Myung-kyung thins the air in front of himself to run faster. My earlier discharge worked roughly like a plasma cannon, and this, driving the thunder inward to fire every cell in the body at once, is the basic lightning-type application of all. I tried it years ago with weak electricity and got nothing out of it except pins and needles for an hour. With an ancient primordial thunder running the same errand, it is not remotely the same experience. I can feel it moving through me like a river and dragging my physique somewhere absurd. It is also not a combat technique, and running lightning through your own meridians is a good way to destroy them, so I cannot hold this for long. Long enough for you lot. Lightning flashes and I am not where I was. I reappear beside a rank 1 upper-tier one-horned rhinoceros and draw a purple-black line through the air, and before the animal registers anything, a red seam opens across its neck. Its head comes off cleanly and lands. Hide that compares to steel plate does nothing at all. Blood goes up out of his stump like a broken mane. A rank 1 upper-tier beast can keep moving with its belly opened. Without a head, it simply falls over, and the body drops into its own pool. The bear sees that happen and stops being patient. It roars and comes, and for something built like construction equipment, it moves appallingly well, crossing 30 meters in a blink on all fours, less running than a series of pounces. It is fast. I am faster. Under the purple sky divine thunder, I turn into a purple-black smear moving through the pack, and every time the obsidian spear stops, something dies. A rank 1 upper-tier one-horned rhinoceros pays 15 ability points. A rank 1 upper-tier blade-armed tiger pays 14. The notifications come faster than I can read them, laid over the sound of a rank 2 beast failing repeatedly to put a paw on me. On the roof, the other 4 have stopped being able to speak. Somebody asks what kind of lightning-type ability this is. Meng Che swallows and points out that the opening discharge alone crippled rank 1 upper-tier beasts. From a man who is still an awakener, and that even an A-grade ability should not reach that intensity. She is not speaking from ignorance. She has watched high-tier A-grade lightning users on the net, and none of them pressed on her like the thing in that yard is pressing on her now. Jo Myung-yang and the bald boy look at each other and say the same syllable at the same moment. S-grade. Then Ju Myung-yang shakes his head and takes it back, because it does not survive 5 seconds of thought. An S-grade awakening would have shaken the entire Great Han Nation on the day it happened. Awakening is arranged by the state, and every awakener's result goes into the national database. so concealing a grade is not something a high school student manages. If there were an S grade here, the state would have collected him for elite cultivation years ago. He would not be sitting in a resource-starved school in a city nobody has heard of. The bald boy offers the alternative, an ability mutation. Jumyeong Yang thinks about it and concedes the point, because mutations are rare and rare is not never. There are recorded cases of a D grade ability turning A grade under freak conditions. Whatever the mechanism, he says, watching the black figure carve its way through the yard, the whole city is going to be talking about this man by tomorrow. Outside the ruins, the moment Seo Jung-myeon walked into that yard in plain sight, the open ground made a sound like a held breath being dropped. Somebody asks what he is doing, and why he steps straight into the beast's line of sight, when Ju Myung-yang's group had the sense to observe from a rooftop first. Several second-high teachers are shouting at a projection to run, which is not a communication method. The director and the principals are rank 2 ability users with eyes trained on decades of this, and their read is unanimous. The boy can handle 2 or 3 rank 1 upper tier beasts at once. Dozens is not a fight, it is arithmetic. And behind the dozens there is a rank 2 bloodthirsty violent bear, which is not a thing he can touch at all. Jang Moon-sun shakes his head with his face gone grim and says the boy is overconfident. He is thinking past tonight too. Even if Seo Jung-myeon survives this, the admissions offices of the major ability universities will watch this footage, and recklessness at this scale drags an evaluation down hard. Jo-yo has gone gray and says out loud that a prodigy his school spent a day discovering cannot fall here. Jin Byom says quickly that the boy still has his safety ball. Jo-yo shakes his head, setting aside whether the ball can even be triggered in that press of bodies. The net it throws is a high-voltage cage. It will not hold against rank 1 upper-tier animals for any useful length of time. Then he turns to the officer running the examination and asks Commander Wang to move the nearest ability user rescue team. Beyond the safety balls, the rescue teams are the other measure keeping candidates alive. They are not green students, they are elites, and although every member is only rank 1, the team composition is designed so that as a unit they can stand against a rank 2 beast. There are only a handful of them in the whole military district, and they exist to be spent on candidates with unusually high potential. The boy sitting in first place qualifies without argument. Commander Wang nods and opens his communicator, and Jo-yo says to nobody that he hopes the boy can hold on until they arrive. Then the projection carrying Seo Jung-myeon turns white. Purple thunder erupts outward from a single point, and every beast around him is charred and thrown clear. A moment later, the boy is standing in the open with electricity in his eyes and purple crawling over his skin, wading into the pack with a spear. Behind him, a rank 2 bloodthirsty violent bear gives chase and cannot land a single blow. The entire battle inverts inside 1 second, and the stands do not have time to follow it. Jo-yo hauls in a breath and asks whether that is the boy's lightning-type ability. Jang Moon-sun, beside him, does not take his eyes off the screen. He asks Principal Jo whether he seriously means to keep calling that an E-class ability. I walk the bloodthirsty violent bear the way you walk a large dog. It works this out eventually. Its speed is not enough. It will never catch me, and all it is achieving is being led in circles. So it stops chasing and plants itself in the middle of the yard. Its crimson eyes follow me everywhere, and every time something of its dies, the bloodlust coming off it thickens by another layer. There were 34 rank 1 upper-tier beasts in this compound. 13 of them were charred to the edge of death in the opening discharge when the pack buried me. The remaining 21 die inside a minute, because with every cell in my body running on primordial thunder, killing them is closer to clerical work than combat. Then I flash across the yard and stop a little under 8 meters in front of the king. I tell it that it is clever, waiting here instead of chasing, since it knew I would come to it eventually. The bear is beyond furious. Air blasts out of its nostrils, its slab of a chest heaves, and the red in its eyes has gone cold rather than hot. Standing where I am standing, an ability user with an ordinary nerve would already be on the ground. I clench my left hand around nothing, and every arc in the yard converges into one bolt of purple. I throw it. It hits. Loud, accurate, dead center, and this is thunder that instantly kills rank 1 upper-tier animals. On the bear, it simply crawls across the surface of the fur, makes the silhouette more frightening, and achieves nothing else whatsoever. So the defense is exactly as advertised. The bear never cleans itself, and that is not a hygiene problem, it is a design feature. The fur mats and knots into plating with the strength of E-class alloy, and more inconveniently for me, that plating does not conduct. My thunder is strong. I am still an awakener trying to hurt something 2 full realms above me, which is a distance that does not close through enthusiasm. Fine. I break the defense first. Then, while I am thinking it, the bear stops waiting. It roars, and violent vital energy materializes around its body as a red updraft that lifts the dust off the ground. Then its whole frame swells a size larger. Veins stand out across that enormous face, and the gravel around its feet starts to tremble. It drives off its legs, leaves a crater where they were, and launches itself at me. Have you ever had a heavy tank thrown at you? I have now. I get out of the way. The bear comes down like a meteor on the spot I was standing, and the old weathered concrete gives up entirely, cracking outward from the impact and throwing dust across the whole yard. When it clears, the thing is standing in its swollen state again, looking at me. Straight to berserk. It really cannot wait to kill me. Rare and high-tier beasts often carry skills that work like human combat techniques, and berserk is one of the common ones. Under it, whatever intelligence the animal had is wiped out, and what remains is instinct with the safety off, in exchange for an enormous jump in physical strength. Normally, a beast saves that for a fight it expects to lose. This one opened with it, which tells me exactly how much it enjoyed being led around its own yard. I am not stupid enough to meet that head-on, berserk or not. My blood chi is 181 and cell activation pushes it somewhere frankly obscene, and I am still 1.86 m against something now past 6 meters. Contesting strength with it would be a novel way to commit suicide. Agility then. Agility is the whole answer. Lightning goes through me and I am gone from where I stood. The bear feels something wrong before it can locate me, and then it feels its left leg. A wide, deep wound opens across it with purple arcs still crackling in the edges, and blood comes out of the leg artery in a column. It swings a fist the size of a par down at the little human by its feet. The little human is already at the other leg. Between the two, the obsidian spear is far better at opening that armor than my thunder is, so I use the spear, and the right leg gets a matching wound. The bear has still not managed to see me. The pain takes the last of its judgment. It starts swinging at everything, an angry demolition machine flattening the corpses of its own pack into paste, and I am already out of the circle. Now I push the purple sky divine thunder as far as it goes. Thunder pours off me and into the bear continuously. Its speed was already behind mine and 2 ruined legs have made it worse, so it cannot escape the bombardment. What it can do, because berserk erases intelligence but leaves instinct, is recognize that the lightning is not killing it, so it hunkers down where it is, and turns itself into a defensive lump. I keep the bombardment running for over half a minute, and by the end the gray-white fur across its whole body has been burned black. That should do it. I flash forward and stop less than 3 meters from its face, which for something with that reach is one small step from an attack. It moves its legs to take that step, and discovers its legs are not there. Worse, its arms have become too heavy to lift. You stood in my purple sky divine thunder for over half a minute. Did you think that was free? The fur armor is strong, but the spear opened both legs early. For the last 30-some seconds, a great deal of that lightning went into those wounds rather than sliding off the outside. It has been quietly paralyzing the nerves the entire time. That was the point of the bombardment, which was never the attack. Now you are a stationary target. I go to work. 50 kilograms of obsidian spear moves like something weightless, the head wrapped in lightning. In 3 or 4 seconds, I put dozens of bowl-sized holes into that body, with thunder flickering inside every one of them doing damage of its own. On any ordinary beast that is a funeral. On a rank 2 lower-tier bloodthirsty violent bear over 6 meters tall, they are scratches. Then it feels its arms come back, and something like a smile spreads across that vast face as it prepares to answer. I leap. I come up level with its chest, close enough to see my own reflection in one crimson eye, and I call the technique Lightning Gale Break. Thunder blooms along the black spear with a fluctuation that terrifies it, and it tries to bring its arms up and is far too late. The impact goes through its chest with a sound that flattens everything else in the yard, purple thunder erupting out of it, and the bear goes backward like a fired shell. It destroys the compound's dead flower bed on the way and plows a gully more than 10 meters long before it stops. There's a charred hole through its left chest. Where the heart was, there is nothing but residual purple still turning over in the cavity. It feels its strength going and its awareness thinning. Instinct puts it back on its feet anyway, swaying, and before it manages a single step it goes down again and stays down. A beast capable of erasing a small town stops carrying any sign of life at all. The system credits 24 ability points for one rank 2 lower tier bloodthirsty violent bear, and I plant the spear and let my shoulders drop. That is over. That took everything I have. The whole fight ran under 2 minutes. The intensity of it, plus holding my spirit at full stretch throughout, means that even at 180 in both attributes I was near the edge. The result was good, which is what counts. And if the final combination had failed to kill it, I had a fallback, which was to spend ability points on raw attributes mid-fight and try again heavier. 2,000 points sitting on a panel is a strange kind of armor. That bear was dead the moment I walked through the gate. It simply took a while to arrive. I drop out of cell activation, the thunder goes out of my eyes, and the arcs on my skin pull back inside. My whole body sags, and I know better than to trust the feeling. That is not weakness, that is the absence of borrowed power, and underneath it I am exactly where I was. Then I check the board, because I would like to know what emptying 2 districts is actually worth. First place, Seo Jong-myung, 10,835 points. Second place, Ju Myung-young, 1,130. And third, Oh ho, 945. Over 10,000. I expected a large number, and this is not the number I expected. The innermost zone pays exactly as advertised then. And if I remember correctly, the highest score in all of Gangnam province last year was only somewhere past 8,000, which means I may have locked the provincial championship before dinner. The arithmetic is not complicated. A rank 1 upper tier beast is 100 points, and the rank 2 king is 4,000. 34 of the former and 1 of the latter comes to 7,400 points out of a single compound, and stacked on the 3,000 odd I already had, 10,000 stops being surprising. What makes it look absurd is the board, where first place is now roughly 10 times second. There is over an hour left, and the core zone and the innermost are both stripped, so I sling the ruined obsidian spear across my back and start back toward the central region. Every extra kill counts, and nothing about tonight is going to happen twice. On the roof, the other 4 are still not functioning properly. Jo Myung-young swallows and says the bear is dead, in the voice of a man asking to be corrected. From the opening of the fight to the spear through the chest was under 2 minutes. A team of elite ability users would expect to spend over half an hour wearing a rank 2 of that species down. The bald boy looks at his watch and says the score has passed 10,000. Jo Myung-yang's eyes go wide, and he says that last year's provincial champion took the title on 8,000 and change, and then asks the room whether they are watching this year's Gangnam province champion. Somebody gasps and asks whether he can really be that terrifying. Then Meng Che says the man is leaving, and that by the direction he is going, he is heading for the central region. The bald boy clicks his tongue and observes that a provincial champion kills a rank 2 beast, and then immediately jogs off to farm the middle band, which is its own kind of statement. Jo Myung-young comes back to himself and slaps his own thigh. He says he does not know whether Seo Jongmyeong is the provincial champion or not. He does know that if they are not in the central region very soon, the 4 of them will not score another point tonight. Somebody swears and asks whether the man is going to clear the central region too. Somebody says to move. Jo Myung-young, who no longer needs teammates for anything, puts his wind ability on and is down the stairs well ahead of them. Outside the examination site, the stands watched all of it with their hearts in their throats. A rank 2 bloodthirsty violent bear is a thing these principals would have avoided at the peak of their own strength, and they have just watched an 18-year-old handle one like a toy. He slipped the leap, then crippled both legs with 2 spear strikes. He bombarded it into paralysis rather than trying to burn through the armor. He opened it up with a flurry once it could not move, and he finished it with a spear-type lightning combat technique through the heart. The sequence ran like water down a slope, and when the bear finally hit the ground, the entire auditorium sat in complete silence. Nobody expected that animal to die tonight. The prodigies of the provincial capital treat that species as a problem to be avoided. The silence holds until the board refreshes and the score crosses 10,000. And even then it takes a second high teacher shouting about a broken record to snap anyone out of it. Then the stands erupt. Somebody says it is not just the city record, it is the provincial record. Somebody says the word genius twice. Somebody says heaven has finally noticed Gang City and that this year's provincial champion is theirs. Principals and teachers from all 3 high schools are cheering with no dignity left between them. An hour ago, the other 2 schools would have had reservations about celebrating a second high student. That has stopped applying, because a boy who is about to become the provincial champion does not represent his school anymore. He represents the whole city. Joyo is on his feet with his fist in the air, and he has lost his composure so many times today that he no longer cares to count. This score is a reservation on the championship, and at the absolute worst, it is provincial top 3. Second high has existed for over 100 years, and its best result in that entire history was 64th in the province. Every principal before him failed to do what has just happened on his watch. Over on the second high stand, the rocket class head teacher is enjoying himself considerably less and keeps asking why that student was never assigned to his class. Jim Biome pinches his own arm hard enough to hurt, which is the only way he can confirm any of this is happening. A student in his ordinary parallel class is in contention for provincial champion. Down on the open ground, the candidates who triggered their safety balls hours ago and came back early are staring at the same number. One of them says Class 5 is hiding monsters. Another says he scored 102 points himself, and that the gap is 100-fold, and then stops talking. On the second high playground, the first and second years have gone completely feral. Somebody says their senior did it. Somebody says a score like that gets him into any top ability university he wants, and somebody else corrects him, saying it is the universities who will be begging now. At least 4 separate students announced that as of today, Seo Jongmyeong is their idol.